for 23-24. But he assures me that actually they're going to be good, and I've no reason to believe that they're not going to be a solid profit in those results as well. And I suspect too, when 25 comes out at the end of March, or is due from the end of March, we should see some solid results then in terms of profits. So I mean, I'm reasonably expecting 3 years of profits. That's not a bad track record at all. So he's not a bad. The point is, he's not a bad candidate. Quite frankly, Philip Saunders may be a better candidate. He does have a history with SAA. He's been acting CEO before. He's a financial guy. But let's be honest with it. Let's not beat about the bush. He's a white candidate, and we've seen, with appointments at Eskom, for instance, that these guys have a tremendously difficult time in terms of the current sort of political and environment, in terms of leading a large parastatal corporation. So he may have scored better, but maybe Lamola should be the guy. I'm very not impressed at all by Kilavuka, who was the former CEO of Kenyan Airlines. He had a very poor track record.
Sorry, just repeat that part. You're not impressed at all with who? Just repeat that.
With Alan Kilavuka. He was the former CEO of Kenyan Airlines, and he hasn't had a particularly good record with KQ, and he would be stepping into SAA cold. So I can't see that he would be a good candidate.
Okay.
So the choice for me boils down to Philip Saunders and Prof. Lamola.
All right, so you're saying that Lamola was effectively the incumbent as the acting CEO. So for all, unless he completely botched it up, it was a job for him to lose, right? And ordinarily, this would reflect a sense of continuity. However, there is a cloud around his appointment, and it comes particularly from the DA, who suggests there's been political interference in the appointment. What can you tell us about that?
Well, I think that the DA is fully justified in blowing the whistle on this, because if the other two indeed got higher ratings, well, then it's not okay that Prof. Lamola should be the appointee, and it suggests political interference. And one of the conditions for the ongoing success of SAA has to be that politics stays out of the airline. It's the reason why Ethiopian Airlines has been a tremendous success and SAA has been a tremendous failure up until COVID anyway. It's political interference. So now we've seen another sign of political interference. Candidates rated higher being bypassed because of political interference. That's a very bad sign, and we've seen it's such a hot point, because we've seen clear signs of cronyism and political interference with AT&S and Axis. So the last thing we want to see is with the SAA.
All right, I would assume that when candidates are rated, I mean, the issues of transformation would be amongst the factors that are factored into the rating anyway. And you're saying that even though that may have been the case, are you suggesting that the other two candidates, effectively from the three, received a higher rating than Lamola? Is that correct?
That's what I understand from the actual press releases relating to the whole action. I haven't seen the detail there, but the key action or complaint by the two political parties involved is that the other two candidates did indeed receive higher ratings than Prof. Lamola.
Okay. Is that normal where, in a case like this, because we're talking about a parastatal, right, that a candidate would receive a lower rating and still in this case, the Minister of Transport would effectively make the appointment?
Yeah. Well, it's very difficult for me to say so, because I'm inherently sympathetic to the government's position on this. I've been very critical in this one. Honestly, there's no harm in reappointing Lamola. He's done a good job up to now, as I've said. Common sense needs to prevail against some arbitrary tick box rating system. Maybe actually Lamola is the guy for the job, and it was necessary for government actually to take a decision to intervene. But certainly it does query the whole process, and it does provide a lot of grist for the mill for those who are extremely sensitive to government interference in parastatals.
Okay. And help us understand the process. I mean, in terms of, let's say, because we'll certainly hopefully get a DA response later on, but for now, I think their concern, besides the ratings you refer to, is that the Minister of Transport, Baba Creasy, then effectively took that name and got the approval or sought the approval of the President. Is that also normal, that the President has to rubber stamp this appointment?
Well, in this case, I think it is, because it's incredibly sensitive The airline has lost 50 billion rands worth of taxpayers over the past 10 or so, or 15 years. So obviously it's an incredibly sensitive appointment. If other people were, two other candidates were rated more highly, well, and they're going to interfere with it, they're going to override that rating, well, clearly I think they want as much political support as they can get for this particular decision, and they should expect to be shot down for it.
Okay, let's then talk about the business of SAA. I mean, you mentioned there's been 3 years of profit, not big profit, but it's certainly better than 3 years of losses or damning losses as has happened in the past, right? What then do you think would be the biggest challenge facing now the permanent CEO?
Yeah, well, the biggest challenge that SAA faces as an organization is the lack of capital. It's got to be able to mobilize capital. The big hope was that the Takatsa Consortium deal would provide $3 billion, although quite frankly that's a drop in the ocean compared to what is needed. And the airline's got to find a useful partner that can bring capital and hopefully additional skills and routes and so on to the actual airline. And that's the challenge that is faced. Obviously, I think Lamola's got good support from within his organization. It's not as though he's been undermined internally, so I think he's exhibited good leadership skills. He has shown to be quite thin-skinned on a couple of issues, particularly as regards any accusations of safety, but I can understand that. And, honestly, I think that he may well be the best candidate for the job at this stage.
Mm-hmm. Now, there's a period, I mean, I'm going back to the SAA tagline of, fly SAA when no one's a stranger. I mean, I certainly remember, very, very endearing, right? In that period, SAA has lost market ground where effectively they've become a stranger. If you ask people to list the top 3-4 flights domestically and internationally they may use from South Africa, SAA would not be one of them, right? How then does SAA regain, what is its market share at the moment and how does it regain that market share?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, because the reality is that the future for SAA actually should just be a regional airline. In fact, it's actually stretching itself too thin at the moment. Trying to service Sao Paulo and Sydney, not Sydney, Perth. It doesn't have the aircraft to do it, which is why it's so tremendously so need of capital. And I think that and it's under huge pressure to fly the flag in all the destinations, all the continents around the world, which is what it's about doing. So it needs somebody with enough political clout or weight to be able to wind the government's neck in and say, listen, we can't go to these places anymore because the other airlines have got in lunch, and we should just actually be operating within Africa. That's pretty much where they need to be at. And I think that at the moment you get a weak candidate who doesn't have the political credibility clout to stand up to government, we're going to find ourselves flying routes that are uneconomic, but just for the sake of national prestige. That's an absolute surefire route to disaster. The best example of that was when we flew to Beijing for a couple of years, where the airline was losing at least R1 million on every flight it operated to Beijing. That's something CEO can afford. Stage. Okay.
Guy Leach, you've got us thinking about many, many things, including just flights, domestic or international, for considering whether you fly SAA. Thank you for your time. Much appreciated. And lots of conversations around the position of now the permanent CEO as opposed to the acting CEO of SAA, Professor John Lamola. Get used to that name. We'll hopefully get a response from the DA. They're not very happy. They're critical about that appointment. We'll see what happens. But you certainly can connect as well. You can't quite call in right now, but you can WhatsApp, text or voice notes, 0614 104 107. I tell you what, I went to a lunch today. You can just guess what is the topic of discussion. We'll talk about that next.
With Ford's Blue Sky offers, get a new Ranger XL from just $5,899 per month, including our optional service plan, only when financed through Ford Credit. 10% deposit, prime is 4.75%, 40% residual. Visit your trusted Ford dealer today for Blue Sky offers, where our Ford Family Guarantee comes standard. Limited time offer while stocks last. Ford Credit is a registered credit provider and an authorized financial services provider. T&Cs apply.
Fizzy drinks and fruit juices can make our children sick. Sugar is dumped into their bodies with every sip, which could lead to obesity, heart disease, and diabetes as they age. We must protect them from drinks high in sugar. Demand a stricter health promotion levy now. Sign the petition on heala.org. That's HEALA.org.
Makoti Down Products is a proudly South African family business, started more than 30 years ago with 12 geese and a piece of material. Makoti manufactures duvets, pillows, sleeping bags and high-quality Egyptian cotton linen. Our down products are suitable for people with dust mite allergies and come with a lifelong guarantee. And we offer a nationwide cleaning service for all your feather and down products. Visit us at makoti.co.za or call us on 041 9922 395. For quality down, Makoti Down.
Right, 52-year-old Sipho loves Outsurance Essential. Why? Well, because it's low-cost insurance made for older cars. For his 2007 Hyundai Tucson, he only pays 314 rands a month. With Outsurance Essential, accident claims are paid in cash, so you can choose the panel beater you want to choose. Now, top this up with a motor warranty, which covers you for mechanical or electrical breakdowns as well. Get saving with Outsurance Essential for unfinanced cars older than 5 years and valued at less than 130,000 rands. SMS CAR to 43187. You got that? CAR 43187. Licensed insurer and FSP, T's and C's and information online.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
I tell you what, so I had this family lunch today, right? And, ordinarily a family lunch would be, talking about nostalgia and because people coming from different parts of the world. And I can tell you of about 20 people, there was only one major theme that came out of it. And that theme is Donald Trump and Elon Musk. And as you may be aware, my sister lives in Canada. Part of that theme was also banter to say, how's your president? How's President Trump? It just shows you just how what Trump has attempted to do or executed in the last few weeks, in fact, has impacted Europe, the Middle East, Canada, Greenland, Mexico, the Panama Canal, and definitely South Africa too. So it is in that context, let's talk about the goings-on regarding an issue that absolutely impacts all of us, which is the issue of AfriForum and South Africa and Donald Trump and the different issues of how AfriForum has been attempting to effectively sell their cause abroad, right? Let's get the thoughts of Sherwin Bryce Pease, who's the SABC News US correspondent. Sherwin, good to connect with you as always on the National Pulse.
It's always good to talk to you, and welcome to the Trump Vortex is what I call it.
Well, there you are. And I've just given that example, and that's exactly the reality, right? So let's start with AfriForum and solidarity. We know what Trump said before. We know there's been denials from AfriForum about, no, we're certainly not going to emigrate to the USA. Having said that, despite other pressures from within South Africa, they are in the USA, and that clearly has got to be a lobbying group there, right? What are they there for?
They had the wind at their back, right, after that executive order. So essentially, AfriForum CEO Kali Kriel, the Solidarity Movement's Philip Bass, Solidarity CEO Dirk Herman and Jaco Kleinas are all in Washington, D.C., in the main to keep that momentum going, right? The momentum that they see as positive to their cause. They want to thank the Trump administration. They had meetings with officials at the White House 2 days ago. We understand that they've been engaging with members of Congress from the House Foreign Relations Committee, the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, and they are seeking here to maintain pressure on not necessarily the South African government, Ashraf, but ANC leaders in the main. I'll read you just a segment from a memorandum that we are told they handed over to officials here, and they recommend in this memorandum that the pressure on South Africa be sustained, but that the focus be on pressuring the ANC leaders who they say are responsible for a variety of policies that they don't agree with, race-based policies, and that the capacity of the civil society and private sectors that they say are standing for the free market and an investor-friendly economy be strengthened. So they're targeting ANC leaders here in the main, and they want the Trump administration to maintain pressure. But I will just produce a caveat to that. They also say that the memorandum indicates that in the interest of South African citizens, including Afrikaners, that it can be best promoted through intensified pressure on those ANC leaders for pushing what they call radical policies rather than ending South Africa's participation in the African Growth and Opportunity Act or punishing the country as a whole. So Evan's concern from them that given the narrative that has emanated from the White House and certainly based on the thought process and the narratives emanating from AfriForum and Solidariteit in South Africa, that there is also concern from them that South Africa might now be excluded from the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act, and that in the main is going to affect white Afrikaner farmers in South Africa.
Well, you see, your interesting line was, AfriForum and Solidarity or Solidariteit has got the wind in their sails. But did Trump's position and threats around AGOA, did that put AfriForum on the back foot?
I don't know if it put them on the back foot. It has certainly allowed them a moment to re-clarify what they are seeking here from the Trump administration. And I think there is obviously an acknowledgement that were South Africa to be excluded, South Africa writ large, be that Afrikaners or anybody else, is going to be affected very negatively. But you're also seeing just today health organizations, NGOs, Becky Kisa, for example, right? People that work in the health space, PEPFAR, TB, that get their funding from U.S. aid, received letters from the Trump administration saying that aid is now going to be stopped. So there are very real implications here to what is going on in terms of how South Africa moves beyond this moment, given the financial implications that the Trump is now going to be imposing the punitive measures in a way. And one wonders to what extent that is based on the rhetoric that is coming out from groups like Solidariteit and AfriForum.
Now, your point about the AfriForum call for targeting the ANC, I mean, that's certainly a position that Kali Kriel has been consistent with, certainly in one of the first conversations I had with him on this issue, right? I mean, practically, have they explained that how do you target individuals as opposed to a country or a government?
Well, the U.S. Treasury Department, not so much the State Department, the Treasury Department has tools, financial tools to target individuals, right? They've done this with individuals in the Rwanda DRC conflict. They are very good at targeting individuals who have property, travel bans, and such sort of punitive measures, Ashraf. So they won't just impose sanctions on the country as a whole. They have tools in which they can target individuals. But I also reached out to, just to sort of pivot here, to South Africa's ambassador in Washington, Abraham Rasool, to get his reaction to this visit. And he said a few things to me. He said he presumed this was a lower level meeting at the White House. The pic they posted from the White House precinct was from the Eisenhower Executive Office building, which stands adjacent to the White House, and that tends to house sort of lower level officials. I'm not saying they're not senior, but they might not be the president, it might not be the vice president, and certainly not a cabinet level official. So who their engagement is certainly of interest to us. He said it's better to have delegations, Ashraf, come and explain themselves, which then allows the embassy to respond to allegations comprehensively. He said he continues to have meetings on the Hill with a cross-section of members of Congress, MAGA representatives, mainstream Republicans, and different shades of Democrats. He says this has created a moment of great curiosity for South Africa. He also talked a bit about his encounters on the Hill. He talked about the quiet embarrassment that he has encountered from some members. Given the White House consideration being given here to white Afrikaners as refugees and as victims of oppression. But there are 435 members of the House, 100 senators, and I can tell you there is a cross-section of views towards South Africa. Ted Cruz is the chair of the Africa Subcommittee on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Jim Risch is the chair of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. They have all said negative things about South Africa's foreign policy, and they've called for punitive measures from the White House against South Africa. So it's a mixed bag when you talk about who's siding with South Africa and who might not be when you talk about members of Congress on the Hill.
So therefore, in terms, and we want to news, so maybe a quick one. Whichever level of their counterparts that AfriForum and Solidariteit have met, right? How much weight does that carry?
AGOA, for example, is going to be renewed through an act of Congress. The question, though, then becomes, given the rhetoric you are hearing from Donald Trump, his bilateral engagement with countries where you have trade deals already, right? Mexico and Canada, for example, there's a standing trade deal between the United States and those two countries already, and he's targeting them despite, in terms of tariffs, despite those agreements. So the question then becomes, to what extent do we actually believe AGOA will be renewed, given the fact that this president doesn't have a penchant for multilateralism, doesn't have a penchant for multilateral trade deals. He wants bilateral deal making to be, sort of emblematic of his presidency. So one wonders how that looks going forward. I don't have an answer for you, but the suspicion here is that AGOA might or might not be renewed based on the proclivities of Donald Trump.
Okay. And can you confirm that whereas this group of Afrikaners have been able to meet at some level of their American counterparts, that the South African ambassador in the USA, Ibrahim Rasool, number one, as well as our Minister of International Relations, Ronald Lamola, have not been given an opportunity of meeting their counterparts in the last few weeks?
They have been engaging with members of Congress, but they have not been able to secure direct lines of communication. For example, Ronald Lamola with a Marco Rubio. President Ramaphosa, we understand, is seeking an audience or a telephone conversation with President Trump. We understand that has not happened. We're waiting for the presidency to announce its U.S. envoys, but our understanding is, given the lack of the ability to engage, they are being very cautious of their approach here. That's why we haven't even heard who those envoys are going to be.
All right, lastly, is this visit by AfriForum about quelling the conflict, effectively smoking a peace pipe, or does it effectively fan the flames?
I'll read from their document. The pressure on South Africa must be sustained, and the focus must be on ANC leaders. So I think they're trying to recalibrate the message to target certain individuals, but essentially I think they're very, very happy about this moment that the Trump administration is providing them and their cause.
All right, let's leave it at that. Sherwin Bryce, please, as always, thank you for your time. A busy man, understandably so, right? Let's get your thoughts on that. Let's get the news headlines now. Here's Ondela Mbana.
Thank you, Ashraf. In the news headlines, Basic Education Minister Siphiwe Gwarube says government must partner with the private sector in order to deliver quality basic education to millions of South Africa's learners. Government has confirmed that the envisaged envoys to be deployed in different countries to explain the country's position, among others, are yet to be established. And there are reports of 2 explosions and gunfire at a rally held by M23 rebels in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N14 in Lansera has slow-moving traffic reported north of the R512 Malibongwe Drive exit. The N1 southbound in central Johannesburg is slow-moving towards Crown Interchange. The N3 northbound in Bedfordview is slow-moving on the link to the N12 east at Giluli's Interchange. And the N1 northbound in Midrand has a crash reported near New Road. In KZN, the N2 southbound has a stationary vehicle reported before the Sabai Drive exit, and on the N3 eastbound, this weekend there'll be weekend closure on the ramp to the N2 southbound at Spaghetti Junction, which will be closed from 2 p.m. Saturday until 2 a.m. Monday. And in Cape Town, the N1 outbound has heavy traffic delays towards Brighton Road, so consider alternative routes. The N2 outbound is slow-moving towards Spine Road exit. The M5 northbound, slow-moving towards the N1 Kubik interchange. And the R300 northbound is queuing on the ramp to the N1 outbound carriageway. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tumi Nkapele.
Right, our very own Minister of Sport, to me, good to connect with you as always. Right, let's talk about the Springbok. There's some changes there, right?
Absolutely. A very good afternoon to you, Ashraf, and our listeners. Well, the Springboks have been boosted by the return of Felix Jones to join the coaching team as an assistant coach, and this is from the 1st of March. The 37-year-old, who was a key part of the Boks setup when they won the 2019 and 2023 Rugby World Cups, was recently with England, and Bok coach Rassie Erasmus also unveiled his management team for the season, with Lance Lemigas to join the medical team as one of the 2 physiotherapists from June, while Robin Moore will join as team dietitian from the 1st of April. Elsewhere, World Rugby has blamed the global economy for having to retrench more than 10% of their staff following a strategic review. The Daily Mail reports that around 35 French staff in areas like communications, marketing and branding have been told that they will lose their jobs. Then in football, South African Football Association Technical Committee Chairperson Jack Maluleke has explained the reasons behind recalling former Bafana Bafana head coach Molefi Ntseki back to help the Chan team. Ntseki joined the team in camp last night and will be assisted by SA Under-20 head coach Raymond Mdaka. On Sunday, Bafana will play Egypt in a Chan playoff qualifier at the Free State Stadium in Bloemfontein. And here's Maluleke just talking about how they settled on Ntseki as replacement for Bafana assistant coach Helman Kelele, who withdrew from coaching the team.
No. He was actually, by now, as you know, that the Academy of Boys was supposed to have been running from January at SAFA Academy, but because of the requirements by FIFA that the standard of fund value, we needed to check issue of security. Hence, we stopped the project until next year. But Coach Ntseki will be with SAFA even throughout. It's not going to be in this...
because the thing people will say, but he was at Gallants. So how was he part of SAFA?
Yes, you remember we interviewed him long time ago. He was supposed to be roped in long time, but we've given a chance because once another team wants his services, we said no, he can still go there. But whenever we release the letters of appointment, he must come back. But in any case, the issue of Gallants, even if he was in Gallants, we would have called him because he's in our system.
Meanwhile, Thulani Serrero is officially a Cape Town City player. The Cape side unveiled the 34-year-old this morning, seeing him return to the PSL after 14 years. Now, the club's next league assignment will be against AmaZulu away from home on Sunday, and we are waiting to see if he will play in that match. In the meantime, the Court of Arbitration for Sport has ruled in favor of the Algerian Football Federation over a map of Morocco on the shirts of Renaissance Berkane in the 2024 CAF Confederations Cup. Now, Algerian side USM Alger were kicked out of last year's competition after both legs of their semi-final against Berkane were cancelled because of a diplomatic dispute. Neither match took place as USMA and Algerian authorities objected to a map of Morocco on the Berkane shirts, which includes Western Sahara. Now, the concept is that Algeria cut diplomatic ties with Morocco in 2021, partly over the Western Sahara issue. In cricket, Pakistan's last Champions Trophy group match with Bangladesh was abandoned without a ball being bowled because of rain. Pakistan lost to New Zealand and arch rivals India to finish bottom of their four sides in Group A. They were a point below Bangladesh, who also have 1 point but a lower run rate. So basically, this match was for pride, as both nations are out of the semis. However, India and New Zealand are already in the semi-finals from Group A. And in terms of Group B, South Africa, Australia and Afghanistan competing for the other two semi-final spots, with England out of contention. In Olympic news, the International Olympic Committee President Thomas Bach will resign as the member of the Olympic body after handing over his presidential successor in June. Bach steps down from his post this year after 12 years in charge, and he will hand over on the 23rd of June to the new president to be elected on the 20th of March. On that note, it is a wrap from my side.
I want to ask you this, and I love cricket.
Yeah.
The worst thing about cricket has got to be the rain.
Yeah.
So
it just spoils everything.
Here's my question. Cricket has been the forerunner with regard to, let's call it VAR. I'm saying that with a third umpire. And South Africa actually were the forerunners. And they've been very, very innovative in a lot of things. Right? Goodness, isn't it about time we have indoor cricket, man?
Perhaps.
I know there's issues about people are going to say, what about the conditions and the ball swinging? Go and sort it out yourself. At the moment, really, the world has moved on. We need indoor cricket.
Yeah, because this thing of the rain and split points and some feeling it's fair, it's unfair.
Yeah. I mean, Duckworth, Lewis are the two most important people in cricket right now. That has got to change. Do you agree? More sport in an hour.
Andile, the CEO of a multinational corporation, is driving home with his daughter.
Dad, why is the tooth fairy so stingy?
Stingy? Well, she makes sure everyone gets something.
Does every electrical company get something?
Yes, they're covered by Old Mutual Corporate's employee benefits.
Even Abdul?
Of course, he gets retirement benefits.
And Sisampo on that big machine.
She gets group risk cover if that big machine hurts her.
Wow, that's amazing, Dad.
Visit oldmutual.co.za/employee benefits and go from questions to solutions for your employees with Old Mutual Corporate. Old Mutual Life Assurance Company SA Limited is a licensed FSP and life insurer. T's and C's apply.
Dr. Nikki Alexander, Dr. Thomas Chamberlain, and Dr. Jack Hodgson form a dedicated team of forensic pathologists who try to work out how and why the victim died. This series sees Nikki investigate a murder that's a carbon copy of a case from her past. She soon suspects that the killings are personal to her. But who will believe her? Meanwhile, Jack creates tension when he finds himself aligned with a police complaints investigator over the accidental shooting of a girl by armed police. And a seemingly random killing in the remote countrysides leads Nikki and Jack into the dangerous underbelly of a criminal world. This is Silent Witness, Thursdays and Fridays at 10 p.m. Starts 20 February only on S3. Open up.
Get your payments done with the utmost security and convenience when you purchase a TV license now. With our new secure payment systems with a one-time PIN, OTP feature, and the choice of receiving your OTP via SMS or email, you can ensure prompt and secure payments. The additional use of CAPTCHA will protect you against spam and automated data attractions. With TV licenses, you can enjoy watching all your favorite shows or movies that matter to you. Get yours today. Visit www.tvlic.co.za.
I'm Michelle Constant. Join the JSB crew and I every Saturday and Sunday morning between 7 and 10 a.m. We promise to keep you informed and entertained with innovation, culture, cars, travel, life learnings, environment, and of course, your big fat juicy. Small stories, big ideas, massive inspiration. The Jet Set Breakfast on SA30.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Well, in a few minutes' time, I certainly want to get a feel of your pulse. You can WhatsApp, text, or voice note. No calls for now. 0614 104 107. Tell me what for you moves the national pulse today. Right, let's talk proudly South Africa. Let's talk buy local, which is something that is very much part of our consciousness, isn't it? With me is Eustace Mashimbia, the CEO of Proudly South Africa, Proudly SA. Eustace, good to connect with you as always on the National Pulse.
Hi, Ashraf. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. It's interesting when this interview was lined up, I sort of recollect, probably about 5 years ago when I programmed, directed that time this very same Buy Local Summit. And that's got me thinking about my question to you now, that it seems for whatever reason, it's always in March. There's a very concerted effort in March to step up the Buy Local campaign. Why is that the case, and why is it so intentional?
Because there isn't a lot of noise and clatter around March. We found that the first time we hosted it in March, it worked because there's always just a lot happening in this country. And around that time, we are able to have conversations, especially with policy decision makers, as much as the target includes ordinary consumers, because, their purchasing decisions go a long way towards sustaining a lot of the businesses and industries across the different value chains. But we actually want to deliberately engage with retailers, with supply chain decision makers and practitioners in the private sector, in the public sector, and policy decision makers. And we found that around that time it works. If you have conversations with retailers now, it's the best time. They're already planning for their festive season campaign. So that works for us.
Okay, that makes sense, right? So fine. In a few weeks' time, is it the 12th of March? Have I got that date right? No, that will be the 12th is an important one around the budget speech, so clearly not the case. But certainly in March, you've got the Buy Local Summit, right, and Expo. What then is the key themes to be looking forward to this time round?
So it's 17 to 18 March, and the key theme are centered around the fact that we were trying to say to South Africans we can build a resilient economy because of the tough times we find ourselves in. It's about the economy being resilient, and obviously the resilience means sustaining what we have and growing it, where it's possible. And so we're looking at issues around illicit trade, and the different industries that are affected by that. We're looking at conversations that talk to industries that are labor intensive and need our support, and how this can be supported, and that involves a lot of the manufacturing subsector industries or sub-industries, and so that is basically what we're going to be looking at. The clothing and textile industry is one that we're also casting our eyes on. We're also throwing in the creative industry. There are lots of jobs in that space, and so we are quite intentional in terms of casting a spotlight on industries that people understand whilst knowing that there's a matchmaking process that links all of these local producers that are on the exhibition floor with purchasing decision makers that they're targeting.
Okay, the word matchmaking certainly resonates here. What then happens over the 2 days? I mean, one would be, I would assume, lots of thought leader conversations, but ultimately for a person listening to us now, why would they want to be at this Buy Local Summit and Expo?
Look, they would want to be at the Buy Local Summit and Expo because, one, it's exposure to the different local brands. I mean, we have a session where we're celebrating the local heroes, and the local heroes are the products that you and I, and even though there's an age difference, and those who are much younger than us and are much older than us, have been consuming in South Africa, and those are the products that are creating jobs. So we're telling the story, for example, on the 25-hour day that Bawan spoke about many years ago, what Castle Lager and what it means and how many jobs it's created and how many jobs and livelihoods it sustains. So for consumers, those are the light-hearted stuff, but which are hard-hitting in terms of the impact they have on the economy. And then, for consumers also, there's an opportunity to shop and buy locally made products. I mean, all our consumers have point-of-sale devices, and that range across. So we have 26 different sectors and industries represented. So from small consumables to high-value industrial items. So a buyer from a mine can come and find an illustration of what they require for them, underground, because we have that. I mean, a guy who makes products and requires steel components can come and find steel. We know the stories around what's happening with the steel industry and some of the operations that are important to our economy closing down. So those will be represented. I mean, renewables is another one that we're going to showcase. I mean, so there's something for everyone. 26 different industries, some consumer-facing products and some, industrial, and not necessarily targeted.
And therefore, in terms of who attends, would it be, is it a case of like business owners, large or small, as well as the public, or it's clearly demarcated who can actually attend?
No, everyone can attend. There's something for everyone. I mean, those with consumer-facing products want consumers to come. There are people selling clothing and textile items, as well as some FMCG products that want consumers to come and taste and feel their products and buy them and develop an affinity towards those products, so that when they go back home, they still buy those products. And then there's these buyers who must come because they will find companies that they can list on their databases, or retail buyers who are engaging actively now, who can come and find products that they can put on retail shelves, including buyers for online stores for that matter, because that advent of shopping on online stores is growing. So it's open to everyone. It's free to register. No one pays to attend the Buy Local Summit and Expo. You just go to our website, proudlysa.co.za. The minute you land on the homepage, there is a registration tab. You register and it's free to attend.
Okay, I will be there. That's all I'm saying, right? Let's get to the issue of Buy Local. I mean, that is a line, a theme that Proudly SA has adopted for a good number of years, right? And you stay with it. How effective has it been in shifting mindsets to want to buy local as first choice and to stay with that?
It has, in some quarters, been largely successful. I mean, we've seen a lot of growth. I mean, in fact, we have a segment that focuses on companies that come and tell their stories, success stories and case studies of how the Buy Local movement has helped an entrepreneur who had, a product that they're making out of their garage in their house, and now they have a factory. So we have a lot of those success stories. In fact, every year we package a minimum of 6 of those stories where it's really tangible and success stories. So in that regard, we know the Buy Local campaign as well, because those are people who attribute their success purely and solely to the Buy Local campaign.
I would think from a consumer point of view, right? The one part of Buy Local, it effectively draws on your sense of patriotism, so that will be understandable, say buy local. But ultimately, the ultimate sustainability test would be that you'd buy local because local just happens to be the best in the world. I mean, how close are we to attaining that sort of standard?
We have already attained it in many of the industries that we represent, and that's why I'm saying 26. Somebody will say 26 sectors is not big enough, but those are 26 sectors where we know we're already making the products, because you cannot divorce the competitiveness conversation from this Buy Local narrative. And so these are industries where we are largely competitive, where we have been able to aggregate demand from the public sector and private sector where possible, and as a result of that, we are able to achieve, economies of scale that give us that price point that helps us compete with products coming from outside. And that's why it's limited to 26 sectors where we know Here we are confident we have the capacity, we have the price point that consumers are looking for, because ultimately the consumer is hard pressed and they will make a purchase.
Yeah. I remember, and maybe just to wrap up then very, very quickly, I remember we had that engagement brainstormer a few months ago at Monte Casino, and we spoke about incentives for buy local. I mean, besides liking it and being patriotic about it, are there incentives now being built in to say if you buy local, that something more will come your way, which then rushes more people to do that and follow that line of saying local gives me much more than just feeling good? Just a quick answer on that.
No, we don't, except that you are contributing to your own people getting employed, and that's ultimately it. We're growing the tax base because then there's more people who are able to pay taxes, and there's a bigger tax base when companies are doing well, because then there's higher tax collected, and then there's more at the disposal of those who are supposed to render services to us, and so that's ultimately it. We all know someone who's unemployed, and that's what we're looking to.
I suppose they need to be conscious about just how their 1 rand spent locally impacts the broader South African landscape. Eustace Mashimbia, thank you for your time. CEO of Proudly SA. Yeah, I'll be there. Buy local summit coming up in March.
S3 and Lorna Maseko are adding flavor to your Wednesday evenings. Lorna invites you on a journey of discovering new ways of transforming South African pantry staples into delectable and budget-friendly meals. From reimagining traditional South African dishes to infusing global inspirations, Lorna's inventive recipes and seasoned cooking tips inspire creativity and will empower viewers to navigate the kitchen with savvy resourcefulness. Tune into Lorna's Pantry, Wednesdays at 6 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
Up your February with great value deals from Vodacom Business. Meet the new Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra featuring integrated Galaxy AI. Get it on a Red Business 1.5 gig plan for only 1,539 Rand per month over 24 months. Enhance your deal. Add 69 Rand extra per month and get the Samsung Galaxy Watch 7 eSIM. Available in-store and online. T's and C's apply. Further together. Vodacom Business.
The whispers in the morning as I look in your
This February, the month of love and self-care. At SAFM, we're celebrating with you, spreading love to all. Let's embrace kindness, connection, and self-care. And as always, SAFM will continue leading the conversations that move us through love, wellness, and everything in between. This month, let's love ourselves, love each other, and keep the conversation going. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
'Cause I'm your lady and you are my man.
Right, lots to consider, and I want to get your thoughts now. You can't quite call in right now. We have some technical issues, but you can certainly engage with me via WhatsApp. Voice notes are welcome, 0614 104 107. So, and you can also text us on the same number, but nothing stopping you also posting on our Twitter or X line. Just connect with us, tweet to at SFM Radio and myself, Ashraf Garda. Use that hashtag where applicable, the National Pulse, because that really is ultimately what we're focusing on. What is it that drives the National Pulse? Now, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, Sunday World keeps you updated. Get breaking news, sports action, and exclusive celeb scoops at your fingertips. Read it, stream it, listen to it. Sunday World, news for all, anytime, anywhere.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Okay, I just wonder what is it that you want to pick up on some of the issues we are talking about. In fact, John's saying, Ashraf, we are not the only country affected by the USA cuts in funding, but we seem to be the only country intent on sending envoys all over the world to explain ourselves. We're exposing ourselves unnecessarily. Trump has already sealed our fate, and that's final from John in Cape Town. Is that true? You know, but I mean, who are the envoys? The foreign minister should connect, and the ambassador of a country obviously is there already anyway. Why would he not? The envoys you're talking about, are we talking about AfriForum? Is that the envoy? Comment about AfriForum.
Ashraf, good afternoon to you and SAFM listeners. Look, Ashraf, this thing of AfriForum and what they're doing with Donald Trump and the Americans, if they are punishing us for implementing restitution and restoring the black dignity or the dignity of the black people, then there's nothing else we can do. We cannot bow to them. We cannot bash Donald Trump. We cannot give in to their demands. No ways. We can't. We'll just have to soldier on, be a strong nation, be together, fight on. Just do away with corruption. We'll live, we'll survive, we'll make it in South Africa. Thank you, Ashraf.
Interesting point you raised. We can't, give in to their demands. Should we, but I'm also trying to be diplomatic about the reality. Should we have been more diplomatic than saying we will not be bullied? That means being very practical about the realities. For example, we have an ambassador there in the USA. He can't go into the White House and storm and say what he wants. I mean, there's negotiations that take place. On the other hand, would we benefit in the long term from this rug being pulled from us? I wonder. And maybe that's something we should be considering for a long time, because the reality is we've been far more dependent than independent for a long time.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Ashraf, there is no such thing as targeted sanctions. Okay? The targeted sanctions that we put on Zimbabwe by America and Europe, they affected the people on the ground, the poor people. So they're talking about targeting South African leaders. They want to put sanctions on the people of South Africa. The people on the ground are the ones who are going to suffer, the poor people, not the leaders. They have money.
Okay, well, I mean, I'm very interested in how, targeting sanctions, saying you can't travel to our country, I mean, that's not a big deal, is it? It's something else. Can they actually carry out targeted sanctions? Just a comment about the president.
Hi, good day, Ashraf. Cyril Ramaphosa and the ANC government must take full responsibility for the state of the economy. They allow themselves to be used as puppets by Russia and China. They equip Russia with arms. When the ship came to dock, the famous ship that came to dock in Simonstown, and they loaded it with all kinds of weapons. Who knows what they put on there? And then also go into the international courts with regards to Gaza. They're too much worried about international affairs than sorting out our own problems here in South Africa. So no, and they must go. Cyril Ramaphosa has been just as a bad president as Jacob Zuma. Vince, Cape Town.
Okay, thanks for that, Vince. But I mean, you can't not have a foreign policy, can't you? And I mean, South Africa is a good example of a country that was changed by virtue of the foreign policy of many other countries. So you can't really do that. And when we talk about South Africa making a mess, I mean, how do we rate the USA right now? I mean, just think about that.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. It's Suwane from Durban. You know the problem with AfriForum and Solidarity? They think they are a shadow government that runs this country from behind. It's because they did not get punished after 1994 for apartheid. But they can take AGOA, they can take whatever they want to take. South Africa has a powerful hand in this. If they try sanctions or any tariffs, we just close their ships. We control the main coastal system. Finish and clear. America can't threaten us with anything. We have that overhand over them.
I don't quite know if we have an upper hand over them. I really, listen, I love my country. I'm also trying to be practical about it. Right, here's a cricket comment.
Ashraf, good afternoon. It's Pumele Ngami and Peter Marisbeck. Listen, man, the worst thing about cricket, for cricket and South Africans, is obviously that Duckworth-Lewis method. And that one incident we will never forget. That's one incident that made us chokers. I still hurts decades later.
What was that? I remember 22 runs to win off 11 balls and then 22 runs to win off 1 ball. 1992 World Cup, yeah. I did say we need to find another way to get rid of Duckworth and Lewis. I mean, they can't dominate our lives, can't they? Just not cricket. 4 o'clock, here's the news with Ondela Mbana.
Thank
Thank you, Ashraf. Top stories at 4. No further extensions for spaza shops registration, and government yet to deploy envoys to various countries. For SAFM News, I am Mondela Mbana, and a very good afternoon. Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs Minister Nkosini Tlhabisa says there will be no further extensions with regards to the registration of spaza shops and food handling outlets. Tomorrow marks the final deadline for business owners to register with the municipalities in which they operate. The registration drive follows the tragic deaths of more than 20 children last year from the food-borne illnesses. Tlhabisa visited the Tshwane Registration Centre in Pretoria this afternoon.
There will be no extension. We are not going to make any recommendation to the President. There was enough time for people to register from the extension made in December up to tomorrow. But any person who wants to get into this business, if he or she is unable to meet the deadline tomorrow, the registration application process will be going on from the first, which is a weekend, of course, from Monday.
Basic Education Minister Sivuyo Kwagube says government must partner with the private sector in order to deliver quality basic education to millions of South Africa's learners. She was speaking to delegates attending the first day of the 3-day education Lekgotla in Boksburg, east of Johannesburg. Kwagube says there is a need to reorientate and strengthen the sector in a financially constrained environment where teacher-learner ratios are increased and hard choices need to be made.
The private sector has an essential role to play in alleviating the financial pressures we face. We must build strategic partnerships that leverage private sector innovation, investment, and expertise to supplement our efforts. This is not just about outsourcing education, and this is a very important point to make. This is about building partnerships. We are not saying that as a department we're not taking the lead in being able to provide the basics of education, but we are saying that having partnerships along the way is going to be able to assist us in being able to deliver a quality product at the end of the day.
Government has confirmed that the envisaged envoys to be deployed in different countries to explain the country's position, among others, are yet to be established. President Cyril Ramaphosa, during the State of the Nation address, announced that he will be sending an envoy to various states, including the U.S., to clarify the country's position on a number of contentious issues, including the Land Expropriation Act. Minister in the Presidency, Khumbudzo Ntshavheni, was speaking at a media briefing in Cape Town.
We will announce when the envoys are sent, and we are glad that you continue, not only the media but South African, call out the misinformation, as I've indicated, that are being said. And I don't know why we want to expropriate the president's power. There's only one person who's called the president who takes the oath of office to be president. And he's the one who's going to appoint the envoys, and once that appointment is done, we will then announce the appointment.
A group of former African heads of state say bold, comprehensive debt relief plans are needed for many countries on the continent to promote development. The group signed the Cape Town Declaration on the sidelines of the G20 finance track meetings. The historic initiative is aimed at tackling the debt crisis among African countries. The initiative aims to advocate for the reduction, suspension and elimination of debt and related debt service costs. Former President of Mauritius, Amina Garoub Fakim, read out the declaration during a media briefing.
We, a group of African leaders, have come together in Cape Town as the African Leaders Debt Relief Initiative, ALDRE the acronym, to call for bold and urgent action on a comprehensive plan for debt relief for Africa and other developing countries suffering under excessive debt burden.
Recapping the top story, Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs Minister Nkosini Tlhabisa says there will be no further extensions with regards to the registration of spaza shops and food handling outlets. I am Mondela Mbana for SAFM News Headlines at 4:30.
In sports, the Sawa date set to unveil McCarthy as Kenya coach. Kolisi returns to bench for Sharks, and Hamilton Fosters in second morning of Formula One testing. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M57 in Centurion is closed near St. George's Hotel. In Midrand, the N1 northbound has a crash reported near New Road. All lanes are open. And the N1 southbound has a stationary vehicle reported near Allendale Road. In KZN, the N2 southbound has a stationary vehicle before Spaghetti Junction. The N2 southbound has a stationary vehicle before Sabai Drive exit and Umgeni Road westbound, slow moving through Springfield Park. In Cape Town, the R300 northbound queuing on the ramp to the N1 outbound carriageway. The N1 inbound has a stationary truck reported before Old Oak Road, and Bakencrust Street outbound is slow moving towards the elevated freeway, and Kloofnik Road outbound slow moving through Tamboerskloof. With your traffic update, I'm Irma Jean.
Stay safe on the roads. SAFM is with you.
CFI, a global leader in online trading, is now in South Africa. Access 15,000 plus instruments, currencies, stocks, metals, crypto CFDs, indices, futures, and more on world-class platforms. Enjoy zero pip spreads, no commission fees, and 24/7 support for confident trading. Visit CFI.trade for a secure, transparent trading experience. Don't miss the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda, Tuesdays at 16:45, proudly sponsored by CFI. CFI Financial, an authorized financial services provider. T's and C's apply.
Honey, what are you doing?
I'm stretching for tonight.
I thought you're not dancing at bachelorette parties anymore.
Baby, we need the money to put Johnny through matric mos.
And what's the police uniform for?
The clients feel safer when I wear it.
No, man, just sell your bucky to We Buy Cars. They give the best prices and they pay you within minutes.
Okay, but can I just go and dance one more time, please? You know how much I love it.
No, the buyer's already on his way here.
Wow, okay.
Strapped for cash? Just sell your vehicle to We Buy Cars. The easiest way to sell your car by far.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
So just consider this. I mean, give me your considered view. We know that AfriForum and Solidarity are in the USA. They've been on this lobbying tour. We know that at the time that Trump threatened the AGOA deal, that effectively the AfriForum were very quick to say, hold it, we don't want that AGOA deal to be cancelled, and that's what they're even saying now as part of their memo in the USA. But how should South Africa respond? The presidency, how should they respond? How should they respond to AfriForum? And how should they respond to the USA right now and beyond what they've already done? Do you have some really innovative ways to think about this one here? I want to know. Here's further comments from you.
Hi, Ashraf, Quinton here. AfriForum in United States, I don't know for who they're talking about, because us Afrikaners, the white, some of the generations here, we're not part of AfriForum. We like it in South Africa. Everywhere there's problems and faults and whatever, we work together here. So if they want to go, please go ahead and go. Laat ons hier bly. We are happy here.
Laat ons hier bly. That could be like a hashtag, which I think is an important one. But the fact is, they say they don't want to go, but they say they want pressure by America on certain leaders in this country to change their ways, or else, isn't it? And then, and this comment is exactly who Donald Trump is.
Afternoon, Ashraf. I'm listening to your conversation to show it. The problem with having a president who's like a juggernaut like Trump is this thing that this guy doesn't listen to anyone, and he believes the figmentation of his brain. There was a press conference that he had with Emmanuel Macron, and he was saying that Europe is giving Ukraine loans and America is paying for it. And Macron corrected him. He says, we are giving Ukraine money. And Trump still stood with the fact that no, man, it's not a loan. It's you guys are giving them loans, but then we are giving them money. So there's no use with us explaining.
Okay, let's I'll take more calls. We can't get actual call-ins, but voice note calls. 0614 104 107. What for you? What about the health issue? We're going to chat, by the way, to Mia Milan later on. So that the aid around HIV, US aid funding, that aid has now stopped I understand, like immediately, as per a letter signed off overnight. So there's drama, there's real drama in South Africa, not just exclusively South Africa. That issue affects many other countries in the world as well. Well, let's then get back to local right now, because what about the issues around the eThekwini region? We'll talk about that in a moment.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Right, what is it that phrase, laat ons hier bly? I think that very emphatically stated by that person who says, AfriForum does not speak for me. I think that's important, because what you want to do is more, particularly Afrikaners, because that's been the angle here. They must, that phrase, not in my name, they must ensure that their voices are heard and their voices are louder than the voices that talk down South Africa. That doesn't mean that we don't have problems. We have many, okay? Right, let's talk about one of the problem regions, and that's the eThekwini municipality around water issues. Yesterday, you may remember, I chatted to Asad Ghaffar, the chairperson of the eThekwini ratepayers protest movement about water issues. By the way, listen to that podcast. It's available, safm.co.za. Then look out for the links, podcast, and then the National Pulse. You'll find them all on the website. So we spoke about water issues in that region, and they said it's so bad that residents in the area now are threatening to withhold their municipal payments. Apparently, they're going to give them like a 2-week notice or else. Okay, how bad is it? What happens next? How does the municipality respond? Adnik Mswele is the head of water and sanitation. In fact, we will connect with Adnik. All right, so let me just reconfirm that Adnik Mswele, the head of water and sanitation in the eThekwini region, joins me on the line. Appreciate your time, Adnik. Thanks for connecting on the National Pulse.
Thank you so much, and greetings to the listeners at home. Thank you.
So, as per my point, Asad Ghaffar, representing the eThekwini ratepayers protest movement, suggesting that there's been prolonged issues in many communities in that region where there's no water, and to borrow a typically South African phrase, I'm paraphrasing, like they gat vol. Something has got to be done about it, and they are threatening to withhold their rates if those issues don't get resolved soon. Right, what's your response?
Well, the fact of the matter is we do not have enough water to meet the currently high demand in eThekwini. So I think I want to underscore that the demand is too high. It's high for a number of reasons. The first one is because our usage is high. It's been established that in Durban, people use on average about 268 liters per person, which is much higher, where the number should be around 173 liters per person per day. So we've got that first challenge to deal with. We must, all of us, change the way we use water and reduce it. Obviously, the second elephant in the room is the high water losses in our region. So we've got to also fix our pipes, fix our infrastructure, and invest in infrastructure so that it doesn't fail in the frequency that it's failing now, leading to high water losses. Okay. So for those two reasons, our demand is high. It exceeds supply. So we don't have enough to continue with business as usual.
All right, let me get this clear. Did you say 173 liters usage per person per day, or is it kiloliters? What is it?
Liters. So we are around 273. People are currently using around there, 273, but that number should be like 100 liters less.
I'm trying to find, and listen, I'm not a water expert. I'm trying to say if I was that person. So I'm using 173 liters a day. I find that incredible. Or 270, yeah?
That's the average at the moment. It's very high compared even with international standards. We're using higher than what the developed world is using.
And so what would be the explanation for that in terms of, if it's that high, what then would be, because that's a behavior explanation, what would be the explanation for that?
I think we just don't conserve water because we probably haven't had the pressure of the shortage of water that we are now facing. So when there was abundance, obviously it was not a big deal. But also in terms of pricing, our water is still the cheapest. People might complain and say it's expensive, but compared to the rest of the world, our water is still fairly cheap. So you had a water that at the right price, and then it was also available, both of which are now changing. Availability is now also experiencing challenges, and so will the costs start going up as well, because we are starting to look at other options like desalination. So when we go to desalination, your cost per kiloliter is going to really triple. and then the cost of water is going to go up, and we'll really be forced to manage,
Well, I mean,
manage our
on
usage
the water
down.
cost, I mean, I would think, although you say it's the cheapest, I would think it may be the cheapest, as you say, but it's also relative to the income earned. And I would think, even for someone like myself, and I'm talking about Joburg, that the cost per water in a month is just very, very expensive. And I think many people listening will say, absolutely, you're right, Ashraf. But let's go back to the 273 odd litres. I'm just thinking, it seems so far-fetched to me that the number is so big, because you're talking about every single day now, right? That then I think there could be a case that when people talk about water leakages as the major consumer of water, isn't that closer to the truth? I know in Joburg that's the case. There's massive, they talk about 50% of consumption is actually not consumption, but water leakages, which goes back to maintenance issues.
Well, as I was saying earlier, it's two different problems. The one of usage is monitored at the level of your meter at home. So it's what literally goes through the meter, so which would be what we use in our homes. And then obviously the figures go higher once you start bringing in the water losses. That's another loss, which is now water loss through leaks. So both at the moment in our case are high, and both need to be managed down. So that's why we've just started a program at the moment of installing restrictors in the meters, so that we can at least deal with the one part that will deal with this 273 and trying to bring it down. So we've started that program. We're about 2 weeks into it now. But obviously that will deal with that. It will then depend where you're losing the most water. If we're losing the most there, it will have an impact, but we still have to come back and fix the leaks as well, because we are obviously losing a lot of water there as well.
So your restrictors, I mean, that's a form of like water shedding, if I can call it that, right? Okay, I hear that one, which is throttled perhaps. But let's then talk about the maintenance, because I mean, that's a maintenance issue that I can copy and paste that complaint through the length and breadth of our country, different municipalities. It'll come to the same thing. We have serious maintenance problems where there's massive losses. So how do we combat that?
It needs the investment that I referred to earlier, because I'm sure probably other cities in South Africa are facing the same challenge, but we in our part of the world, our infrastructure is old, it has aged. We have a backlog of close to 50 billion rand in terms of how much we should be spending replacing our infrastructure, because what we should be doing is spending 2% of the replacement cost of the infrastructure every year, replacing it. So if you look at the infrastructure in Durban, our current replacement costs around 130 billion. So if I had to replace everything, I would have to spend 130 billion.
Okay, now we know there's budget constraints. I know that's why we've had problems with the no budget speech of last week, right? So that's not going to be solved in one day. We know that. Which means then, therefore, the message to not just the eThekwini region, but I would think it could be ditto many other regions, to say, when it comes to maintenance issues, I'm sorry, we don't have the money. We can't do a thing about it.
Well, in reality, what is happening is because we have a backlog in terms of replacing it. So if you don't replace it with new, it then means you'll spend more money maintaining. And that's a pattern we are seeing, that is that our maintenance costs obviously are going up. But we don't want that trend. We want to replace it and keep our maintenance costs affordable. But at the moment, unfortunately, but the city of eThekwini has recognized that in the last 2 years, investment in water and sanitation infrastructure has significantly increased. We used to be around 900 million combined for water and sanitation. Now we're in excess of 2 billion, 2.3 billion in the last 2 years. Okay. That's how much is allocated.
Let's then talk about the eThekwini ratepayers protest movement. What do you feel about what they're saying and their threat to give you 2 weeks notice to rectify, or else they will withhold rates, which pushes that region into even bigger problems?
I wouldn't want to comment directly to them, because I don't want to engage with them over the media. But I think as long as they can appreciate that the do-nothing scenario is not going to help anyone. If we say we're not going to restrict, it means we're going to run out of water, because that's what I understand they are saying, that they're not happy with us installing water restrictors. What I think they should be saying is, you can restrict, but I still need my 6 kiloliters free basic water. If I was on the other side, that's what I would say, is don't mess with my free basic water that the Constitution guarantees for me. Okay. But to say don't do anything is not going to help anyone. So that's where I differ with the.
Well, you see, they may come back and say, we're going to borrow your phrase about to do nothing doesn't help at all. They're going to say, we're actually doing something. We are protesting enough to voice our displeasure to the point we may well consider withholding rates. That's us doing something to force the municipality into action.
But as you know yourself, that the municipality operates on the basis of what it collects through selling water, through selling electricity. So these upgrades that we need to do to the infrastructure need to be funded from somewhere. So obviously, if we withhold payments, paying for rates, paying for water, then we're really creating a state that's ungovernable. So that can't work. So we don't need to pay. That's our obligation as residents. I'm a resident myself. If I consume water, I must pay for it so that the municipality can then invest in infrastructure. I think that's what the city is saying, is that let's work together. We understand the challenge, but the challenge needs us to do something.
Okay, have a meeting, perhaps have a meeting with them before it even comes to next week. Ednick Msweli, the head of water and sanitation, responding to the ratepayers' protest movement of eThekwini, effectively saying they may, well, give notice and then may consider withholding of taxes because they effectively are fed up. I'm just wondering if we're hearing the story about various state organizations unable to deliver in terms of utilities, right, on the very basic things, is there a need for a greater private and state intervention? That means getting not privatized, but do something different, getting business involved or not. This is the National Pulse.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
It's 2025, aka 2020 Thrive. And from January to December, we're managing our expenses better, even in the month of love. Whatever personal expenses or aspirations you have, make them happen now with a Nedbank personal loan of up to 400,000 Rand and enjoy our best available interest rate.
Search Nedbank personal loans and show your goals some love. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
SAFM would like to thank everyone that submitted their entries for the playwriting competition. The announcement of the top 10 and winners of the competition will be announced on the 3rd of March 2025 on The Talking Point with Kathy Mutlatlana. Stay tuned to SAFM and find out who is the lucky winner. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Okay, so while we're talking about regions, let's talk about two significant regions, the Limpopo region and the Northwest region, in terms of those regions delivering their State of the Province address, right? So first things first, let's get the report back from the SABC News reporter covering the Northwest region, and that's Tabang Modutla. Tabang, appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much. Hello to you and the listener at home.
Thank you. Right. So perhaps, share with us some of the key highlights that emerged from the 7th Administration's State of the Province address.
Okay, the highlights would say we all know that there's a crisis of water provision in the Northwest, especially in the Ramotsirumula local municipality, where there were recently protests over this lack of water provision. So the 7th Administration plans to use 65 million rands to finish the incomplete projects that falls under that Ramotsiro local municipality that is based in Zeerust. Another one is that there's George Munthiwa Dick Airport that has not been operational for years now, and the government has been promising that they will get to make sure that their people are able to use these airports again. Now they're going to get an investment for this Pilanesberg and George Dick Munthiwa airports to see if they can get them to work. They say by the end of the current financial year. Another one would be that. Yeah, okay, you wanted to ask something with regards.
No, go ahead. It's fine.
Okay, the other one would be the state-owned bus company, the NTI, Northwest Transport Investment. It was placed under business rescue, but the business rescue practitioner, according to the government, has failed to stabilize it. So now they went to court to remove him, but now he has appealed the ruling that favored the government. So they are hoping that they will get a positive judgment from this one again, so that they can stabilize it and employees can be able to get their salaries. You'll remember that during the festive season, they were protesting workers because they did not get their back payments and their bonuses.
Okay.
In terms of...
Yeah, and the next one? Yeah.
In terms of unemployment rate, it's one of the highest provinces that is hit by unemployment. They have the Makereng Smart City project, which will collaborate with development initiative between the Northwest and Gauteng, coordinated by the National Department of Human Settlements, will create 20,000 jobs for people of Madibeng local municipality. The project is estimated to attract investment of between 10 and 25 billion rand. So those are some of the issues.
Okay, some of the key highlights here. Is there anything that, anything else besides what you've just mentioned that for you really stood out that that jumped off the page just by the sheer surprise of it all?
That's a very tricky one, because you'll understand that they keep making these promises, but it's very rare that you'll find that they materialize. I mean, they spoke about infrastructure and getting rid of asbestos at schools, but here in the province, we still have that challenge.
Okay. Were you able to gauge the response of the audience? Because, of course, they come from different political parties.
Political parties have all rejected the SOPA, saying that it's just a talk shop. People want action. It shows that they don't have plan for the province. That's what they're saying, that no. This is his first speech as a premier. They thought that he would actually come with something that will give the residents of this province hope to say, okay, the 7th administration is now in office. We have hope that from the speech that was given by the premier, things are going to change for the province. But as opposition parties, they feel that no, this is just a rehearsal of a speech that was done maybe in 2020.
Okay. Oh, my goodness. I mean, and that, so many people may say the same. Let's leave it at that. Tabang Morutla speech of 2020, copy and paste. Is it copy and paste in the Limpopo region? Let's get the thoughts of Mahlatsi Paladi. Thank you for your time, Mahlatsi. Hi.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and to the listeners of SAFM.
Thank you. Right. So tell us what's happened in the Limpopo region regarding that state of the province address.
Well, Ashraf, just to paint a picture to our listeners regarding the key economic sectors that are contributing highly to the GDP of Limpopo. Ashraf, you are talking about the mining industry, that is the main contributor, and as well as the agricultural sector here in the province. So, Ashraf, there was a lot of anticipation from community members as well as the opposition parties when they came in to listen to Dr. Popira Matuba delivering her first state of the province address, that perhaps you will be diving much into some of those issues that are related to mining and also agriculture. And Ashraf, I must tell you, when it comes to the issue of agriculture, the Premier did as well indicate that as the provincial government in the 7th administration, they are going to work together with small-scale farmers to try and assist them, Ashraf. And in terms of the issue of mining, what she actually mentioned was that as the province, they are going to work with these mining companies. And one of the things that they are going to do is to try and industrialize the mines so that the raw minerals that are mined here in the province are actually processed here. But Ashraf, you remember that this is not a new call from this 7th administration. You look back at some of at the previous administration, they've been calling for this industrialization of the mine, hoping that it will create job in the province. But till today, Ashraf, we understand that some of the mining giants that are mining here in the province are still taking their minerals offshore. So it was quite a talk show, some can say, with no implementation. But Ashraf, key to this, the Premier did mention the issue of youth unemployment that has plagued the province here in Limpopo. And she actually mentioned that as the province, they are taking accountability for how they have failed to address this youth unemployment, going as further as saying that the youth here in the province are starting to grow impatient of this provincial government if they do not come in and try, Ashraf, and actually address this issue of youth unemployment in the province.
Okay, and just the last thing very quickly, Maklatsi, how was that speech or the address received by the audience?
2-hour speech, Ashraf, and after that we spoke to opposition party, but mainly we spoke to the ANC Youth League here in the province, and they said, Ashraf, contrary, they are saying that they are not happy with the speech of the Premier. What they are saying is that yesterday when they were making inputs into this state of the address, they actually mentioned that there are hundreds of funded vacant posts in various departments here in the province. So they were hoping that the Premier will actually try and address that, but they said that she failed to indicate that the province will actually be filling those posts, as they believe, Ashraf, that if they fill this post, it will try to alleviate unemployment rate here in the province, particularly for young people.
All right, let's we can leave it to Maklatsi Paladi, the SABC News reporter covering the Limpopo State of the Nation address, and it seems like there's just satisfaction across the board. Has there been any State of the Province address of all the regions that has really impressed you? How about WhatsApping us on that? Let's get the news headlines. Here's Ondela.
Thank you, Ashraf. In the news headlines, the government is confident that Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana will table the budget on the 12th of March and there will be no change or further extension. Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs Minister Velenkosidi Tlhabisa says there will be no further extensions with regards to the registration of spaza shops and food handling outlets. Tomorrow marks the final deadline for business owners to register with the municipalities in which they operate. And Romanian prosecutors have confirmed that the controversial British online influencer Andrew Tate and his brother Tristan have left the country. They're flying to the United States on a private jet. A full update follows at the top of the hour with Greg Rose.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N14 in Lanseria has delays north of the R512 Malibonga Drive exit and the N1 northbound in Midrand, a crash near New Road. In KZN, the N2 southbound has a stationary vehicle before Sabaya Drive exit and Umgeni Road westbound is slow moving through Springfield Park. In Cape Town, the N1 outbound has heavy traffic delays towards Brighton Road, so consider using alternative routes, and the N2 outbound is slow moving towards Spine Road exit. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
Right, let's talk sport with Tumi. Tumi, you have news about a player, coach now, Benny McCarthy.
Yeah, Bafana football legend Benny McCarthy will officially be unveiled as Kenya national team coach on Monday. The 47-year-old touched down in Nairobi alongside his former Orlando Pirates teammate Munib Josephs, who is set to be appointed as his goalkeeper trainer during his stint in Kenya. McCarthy is expected to outline his vision for the national team on Monday. Then Stellenbosch FC will be eyeing the Betway Premiership top 4 spot with the win over Polokwane City when the two teams meet at the Danny Craven Stadium tomorrow night at 7:30. Stellies are enjoying a 4-match unbeaten run across all competitions and are 5th on the log, and a win against Polokwane will see the Winelands side climb to 4th spot due to their superior goal difference over the Limpopo side, and Rise and Shine on the other hand are 4th and a point behind 3rd place Kukune United, and a win over Stellenbosch would elevate Polokwane into the top 3. In athletics, South African athletics coach Michael Mbambani says that he's looking forward to seeing the long-standing men's 2 Oceans Marathon record for this year. The 54th edition of the 56-kilometer ultra marathon is set for the 5th of April in Cape Town, and the late Thompson Magwana set the record of 3 hours and 3.44 in 1988, and it has remained untouched over 3 decades.
But from our side, it's time for us to talk about the record. We just need to talk about it. That record can now not be dead because the late Thompson passed away. Now no one wants to talk about it. That happens even in a half marathon sometimes in South Africa, where you pick up that the runners, they change the look of the race. As soon as they start bunching up, then you must know that the race will be won by a wrong person. We can't have that. We don't want lucky charmers. We want athletes that will work and win.
Moving on to rugby, Siya Kolisi will start from the bench for the Sharks in the United Rugby Championship local derby against the Lions at Ellis Park on Saturday after his Springbok-required rest period had come to an end. The Sharks also welcomed the return of Vincent Koch, who was worked off a shoulder injury, while Drew Andrea fills in for another Springbok, Trevor Nyakane, who had surgery on his Achilles tendon last week. In tennis, German Alexander Zverev was stunned by American qualifier Leonard T, losing 6-3 and 6-4 at the Mexican Open. The loss is a further hit for Zverev's chances of claiming the number 1 spot in the ATP rankings, while Yannick Sinner serves his 3-month doping ban. For Teen, he becomes the youngest American to beat a top 3 player since Andy Roddick took out Gustavo Kuerten back in 2001, and the youngest ever men's player to win his first 2 matches against top 5 opponents. In motorsport, Lewis Hamilton was the fastest for Ferrari in the second morning of the pre-season Formula One test in Bahrain. Hamilton put on a best lap of 1 minute 29.379 seconds and did 45 laps. On that note, it's a wrap from my side for now.
Perfect. So we will do think about the idea of the indoor cricket, okay? We've had some people agreeing like we need to do something. Seriously, what can cricket do to be as innovative as how they created one-day cricket or 50-over cricket or 20-over cricket to try and eliminate rain as a factor in their sport? Yeah. More sport in an hour.
Masandawana say they're in the business of winning matches, but Amakhosi have a big agenda to stop the log leaders. Naturena confronts Tlurko. Kabuyelo battles it out with Golden Black. This is the Betway Premiership. Witness Mzansi's clash of giants. Mamelodi Sundowns FC versus Kaizer Chiefs FC. This Saturday, 1 March at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC1 and at 3:30 p.m. on SABC radio stations. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
25-year-old Chanel loves Outsurance Essential because it's low-cost insurance designed for older cars. Now, for her 2012 Hyundai 1.2 litre, she pays only 458 Rand a month. With Outsurance Essential, you get up to 1 million Rand liability cover. That means if you cause an accident, the other car could be covered for up to 1 million Rands. Like thumbs up to that, right? Hope it doesn't happen, but there you are. Add even more value with the motor warranty, which covers you for mechanical or electrical breakdowns as well. So get saving with Outsurance Essential for unfinanced cars older than 5 years and valued, this is key, less than 130,000 Rands. Get SMS CAR to 43187, CAR 43187. Licensed insurer and FSP, T's and C's and information online.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, with me is Paswane Mpatlele, the Senior Accounts Manager at Markway Fund Managers. We're going to go local and global in a moment, but there's some interesting news regarding MTN, Paswane.
Afternoon, Ashraf, and to your listeners. Yes, MTN, they gave us that trade update for the full year ending 2024. They're indicating that the operational performance remains intact. Details will come when we see the full results, thanks to the likes of Nigeria, Ghana, Uganda. But they did face some external macroeconomic factors such as currency devaluation in Nigeria. The ongoing conflict in Sudan has seen them write down some of their business, and this has negatively affected their profit as per headline earnings per share, down to expecting about 79%, a big drop, but there's still some positive factors around them. Cash flow leverage ratios are improving. South African operations profitability coming to the second half, moving in the right trend. Stock is all its losses due to general market sentiment. We're seeing in the market that outside our PPI that is moving in a trend that is upward thanks to food, beverages, and tobacco. We're just generally seeing the production level, goods prices are rising. US data pointed to jobless claims that rose. Quarter for GDP is unchanged at 2.8%. Risk events such as NVIDIA, there we saw them coming up. They came and beat expectations, but however, they had a mixed outlook, and this will just have their bullish trade levels being in question until they can trade over that 175 level. With that said, global sentiment is still under pressure. Trump gave us their recent update through his socials around Mexico and Canada going through next week, and he actually included China getting an additional 10%. This will cause a bit of volatility. We see the dollar ticked up on these news, up 0.6 above 107 level. Oil prices followed the lead, up 1.1% at $73. Gold eases some of its losses to $2,890 an ounce. US opened higher despite all these developments, with Nasdaq leading up 0.8, S&P 0.5. Europe, we've seen the DAX being the biggest loser. They're down 1%, CAC 0.7, also losses. KC, we also brought some losses home, 0.9% as our resource sector was down 1.5%, industrials 1%, and in financials down 1%. And looking into the financials, the currency, we see some weaknesses. We see the rand against the dollar is at 18.47, rand against the euro 19.28, and rand against the pound 23.36.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for that, Paswana. We'll connect again tomorrow.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
All right, let's get to some of your thoughts on some of the issues we've been discussing. So here's a question. Hi, Ashraf. Your guest is not correct with those liters of water per day, because their employees do not actually go house to house when taking those meter readings. I have been keeping track on them since last year. If they come to next door to my house and the gate is closed, they just go past and never return. I must tell you, I also have big concerns about that issue, right? Right, there's more. Let me just pick up some of the voice notes. So we can't get calls today. My apology for that. There's just some connectivity problem, but you can WhatsApp, text or voice note 0614 104 107. In fact, what we'll do is we'll get to those voice notes just now. But here's another one, Ashraf. We must text AfriForum, Solidarity, the DA and the Freedom Front Plus. More AfriForum and Solidarity, vote and support to those two parties by Tabang and Van der Bijlpark. I wonder how you're going to work that one out. Okay, let's get then to another issue, and now we look at the work of the EAF Nansen program. They're celebrating 50 years this year, and we assess its contribution to fisheries management and biodiversity conservation and its partnership with South Africa and beyond. So Merete Tanstad with me, the EAF Nansen Program Coordinator of the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization, which is the FAO. Merete, I appreciate your time. You're now live on the National Pulse. Merete,
Thank you. Yeah.
You're live on the National Pulse. Hello, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, got that. So, well, interesting. A time to celebrate. I suppose when you celebrate 50 years, you look back at achievements, and in this case, look back at achievements in South Africa. What impact has EAF Nansen made, certainly in our region?
It's a very unique program because it's not very rare that a research program that focuses on research and fisheries management has such a long time period. 50 years means also 50. Marks 5 decades of advancing fisheries research and generating knowledge on marine ecosystem and building capacity. And that includes also South Africa as one of the partners, both direct partnership, but also through regional collaboration.
Well, that's interesting. So tell me more about the work that you do and how it is, how the research has effectively changed lives in some of those areas I mentioned, around fisheries management and biodiversity.
Yes, so if you think in terms of how fisheries has evolved, in the beginning of the program, it was very focused on looking at exploring for new resources and specifically on certain resources and helping countries to see what they could fish. And then as time has evolved, fisheries management has also evolved, and it's now a much more holistic process, looking at the fish themselves, but also the broader ecosystem aspects of the natural environment, and also the humans, us who are reliant on the resource and also working with fisheries, and the system that sort of governs this fisheries actions. So, yeah, it's quite a advance over those, and then quite a change over those 50 years.
And what do you think would be your unique selling proposition as an organization that gives you an edge?
Well, in terms of FAO, we are one of the main agencies and a UN agency that works on fisheries-related matters and fisheries and aquaculture. And, through our work, for example, we work on something called the Blue Transformation that aims to, has a vision for aquatic and sustainable aquatic food system, where fisheries management is seen as one of the key areas of work to turn the issue of overexploitation, for example. So it's one of the key elements, and I think the E.F. Nansen program fits right into it, together with obtaining or achieving the FAO strategic framework for better production, better nutrition, better environment, and better livelihoods.
I suppose part of what you do and your effectiveness would be, creating local partnerships, isn't it?
Yeah, that's very true. And I think one key cornerstone of the program is capacity development. So, we work on capacity development at different levels. So both in terms of institutional, individual, and also more sort of ability to achieve types of elements in terms of capacity development. So that means that you can see that many of the people that we worked with through the time of the program has now been engaged or are engaged in fisheries in some of the countries that we are in different levels. And you can see that they work as researchers or fisheries managers or at universities or even in international organizations. So, this is one of the key elements that we work on.
Now, it's very topical in a very different way regarding the United States position regarding AGOA and their investment or not in that space. But from a United Nations point of view, how important then is the UN investment into this space?
In terms of, so I can talk in terms of the FAO investments.
Mm-hmm.
So of course, in terms of FAO, oceans and sustainable oceans is one of the key areas of work, and that means that fisheries is one of the key contributors to aquatic food, and aquatic food is a cornerstone for nutrition and food security. So this is the main mandate of FAO. So definitely a key priority area, and you can see that many countries. Also in Africa, aquatic food is the prime source of nutrient and protein, for example.
Okay, so at the time when you celebrate 50 years, it's celebration, but I would think it's a time of saying we can do better, we must do better as well, right? In that space, looking at further challenges, what represents the next big challenge for you?
Oh yes, there's always I think challenges, and I think that is also why you have to be adaptive. And I think, as many of us know, we need to continue to work towards having a sustainable fishery. So fighting overexploitation, illegal, unreported, and IUU fishing, but also so all of these challenges are still there, and we need to find new ways to address them.
Yeah, and therefore that support, besides the United Nations Food Programme, certainly from a Norwegian support, that's critically important too, right? Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so basically Norway has been the main donor of this program throughout 50 years. I think that is quite an amazing position to have, and they have then invested in this collaboration, also in line with their objectives and their political priorities. So, very grateful.
Well, best wishes for what happens next after your 50-year celebration. Merete Tanstad, the EAF Nansen Program Coordinator of the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization, which is the FAO. Thank you for your time here on the National Pulse. We get to feel your pulse next.
Andile, the CEO of a multinational corporation, is driving home with his daughter.
Dad, why is the tooth fairy so stingy?
Stingy? Well, she makes sure everyone gets something.
Does everyone at your company get something?
Yes, they're covered by Old Mutual Corporate's employee benefits.
Even Abdul.
Of course, he gets retirement benefits.
And Sisampo on that big machine.
She gets group risk cover if that big machine hurts her.
Wow, that's amazing, Dad.
Visit oldmutual.co.za/employee benefits and go from questions to solutions for your employees with Old Mutual Corporate. Old Mutual Life Assurance Company SA Limited is a licensed FSP and life insurer. T's and C's apply.
Meet TJ, the magician. Well, he isn't quite the magician, but shame, let's call him that. The other day he tried to do that coin ear trick. Poor Owami is still in the hospital with a 5 Rand coin stuck in his ear. He tried getting his pit bull, Mufasa, to levitate. Oh, he got that right. But now Mufasa is levitating through Tembisa, and somehow TJ forgot to read the section on how to get Mufasa back down. It's tough being a magician, but luckily for TJ, Britain's Got Talent Ultimate Magician will be the perfect inspiration for him to be the best magician in Tembisa. Catch Britain's Got Talent Ultimate Magician Saturdays at 7:30 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
Psst. Have you heard? This Friday, 28 February, something big is happening at Dis-Chem. For one day only, Benefit Card members get 30% off fragrances. Yes, your favorite brands. For him, for her, for you. But don't tell everyone. Or do. Just don't miss out. Shop in store or online this Friday at Dis-Chem. Better beauty starts here.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Okay, let's get to your thoughts. In fact, here's one from John in Cape Town saying, "Hi Ashraf, Alan Wendy speaks about..." Windy? I'm also winding you up, right? So Wendy speaks about creating jobs in his state of the province address, yet under his premiership, 2,400 educators lost their jobs. What a hypocrisy. But I'll tell you what, just to be clear about that, John, you know, that issue of education is something we've discussed with the Western Cape as well. A lot of it comes through national government in terms of the money getting filtered down through education, and there's been cuts. They don't like the cuts either. They can do nothing about it, which is a recurring theme, like we don't have the money, right? Which is worrisome, absolutely. Here's another one. I use less than 70 litres of water per day, plus some tank rainwater for pot plants and vegetable. Only a 2,000 litre tank, but it has never run dry. I've been careful with water since experiencing my first drought as a young child 60 years ago. Thanks for raising the awareness. Okay, right, let's get to your comments in terms of voice notes. I must apologize again today. Can't take your actual calls. Don't take it personally. We're just having a problem with connectivity, so it's just not clear. Once we sort it out, we will. I'll let you know. But you can WhatsApp voice notes, right?
Ashraf, Fred, Durban. They're not spending money in Durban or Tegwini on fixing things. Only when it's like a real emergency will you see them doing anything. The infrastructure has collapsed. There is blocked drains all over the place. There's leaking pipes all over the place. There's electricity faults all over the place. They're not spending the money.
I don't know what to tell you. I just don't know what to tell you. You know, the show is called The National Pulse. You reflect the pulse of a nation, and we know what we're feeling now, isn't it?
Ashraf, and good afternoon to your listeners. We're speaking to Kabazala in Devon. Ashraf, that man who's sitting there, Mr. Msweli, who's the head of water and sanitation, I don't think he's telling the lies. I mean, we reside here in Mlazi. There are places in which one stays. It's been 2 days now. There's no water. There's nothing. You can't even see a single tank. Then ask him what has he been doing for the past 30 years? Because he's talking about the infrastructure that is old. What has he been doing? Because he has been deployed there for 30 years. Then they fail the people of Durban. They are failing the people of Mlazi. They are failing the people of eThekwini because they are doing nothing there. Thank you, Ashraf.
Well, I must tell you, it is a recurring problem across many local municipalities in our country. It's inability to be able to service deliver. And you can't help but understand the level of, or empathize with the level of deep frustration the people have. People ultimately don't even care who's in power. It's like they just want to get things done, isn't it?
Ashraf, if one person uses 278 litres per day, that's 8,000 litres per month. So for a family of 4, that's 33,000 litres a month. It's not possible. Mike East London.
Thanks, Mike. I agree with you. That's why I was surprised and I asked again to say, are you sure? Or is it kiloliters? Like, no, it's right. I'd like someone to correct that, to be, besides you, Mike.
AfriForum is not advocating for South Africans to leave. What they're fighting for is a fairer society. The ANC did exactly that 30 years ago when they lobbied overseas for the apartheid government to come to an end, which rightly so is the right thing to do. The current government is actually enforcing racial division. Look at the quota system even at schools. A child born 10 years ago now can't reach a cricket team because they need to be quotas. So what message are you sending to that child, that race is important? When is this going to stop?
Well, look, you raise an important point. I think the issue of redress is critical, and I'm going to tell you now, I'm completely on side about redress. You can't just say, we got the vote in 94, everything will just work out fine. Like, we have to have interventions. And we're not the only country, by the way. I think, what is it? Malaysia had the Bumi Patra. Others can correct me if I'm wrong on that. Many countries have done that. You have to redress. But is there maybe another way to redress? You don't want to redress the imbalances and then effectively alienate others who had advantages before, or they're children of those who had advantages. You have to create a formula. And I'm not a politician, but I'm putting it to you to say, do we have another formula maybe to re-look at that in the broader South African society? Redress must happen.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. AfriForum is just right-wing, racist beneficiaries of the apartheid, which was a crime against humanity. As South Africa, we should not be blackmailed every time we are afraid of sanctions. Therefore, we end up explaining ourselves when it is not necessary. AfriForum, if they want to influence policies, they must form a political party. Government should stop every time AfriForum goes there. We want to explain ourselves. We should not be afraid of the threat of sanctions. Not at all.
Well, why would you not be afraid of the threat of sanctions? I would be afraid. I'm not saying I'm going to welcome sanctions, and we must be like somebody's, as they say, somebody's dog, and you just do whatever. No, you don't want to do that. But you can't, as a leader of a country, you can't just dismiss sanctions as a case of like, you know what, who cares? We're just getting on with our lives. You can't.
Afternoon, Ashraf. This is Nabs Eqibala. All the members of those groups, that is AfriForum and Solidarity and whatever, they must be treated as they are treating the country, e.g. they must have a certain criteria in terms of qualifying to export so that they can feel it like they are doing to us. So there must be a very special qualification for them in order for them to export, and a special tax.
Okay, special tax, and here's another that I want to play before we get to the news.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Wellington Zulu speaking. If Professor Lamola was not the best candidate Why was he appointed? We know the history of SAA. It's a very painful and poignant one. We need somebody that is more than capable to turn it around.
Well, I think we probably need to get comment from Derek Hanekom, who's been the chair of SAA, right? I don't know. I mean, I've heard that conversation we had with Guy Legion suggesting that he was not the favourite person. I'd be quite surprised they would go ahead with someone who's not the favourite person, who's also the incumbent, by the way, right? Just okay, by the way, you know this as we get to news. Let me just tell you this, right? We have now confirmation that the PEPFAR-funded HIV organizations in South Africa, their funding is seized overnight. It's now a done deal. We're going to talk about that to Mia Malan right after the news at 5. Here's Greg House.
Thank you, Ashraf. In this news update, budget speech will go ahead and the Tate brothers leave for Romania. Good day. Government's confident the Finance Minister will table the budget on the 12th of March and there will be no change or further extension. The tabling of the budget was postponed last week due to political differences on a proposed increase in VAT. Minister in the Presidency, Kumbutsa Ntshabeni, was speaking during a media briefing on the outcomes of a cabinet meeting held yesterday.
The 12th of March is cast in stone. That's what the Speaker has announced. And she has announced that with the confirmation of Cabinet, and market-sensitive information will remain market-sensitive information. Yes, the budget is the budget of Cabinet, but the responsibility to table that budget is that of the Minister of Finance as assigned by the PFMA. As we've indicated, as Cabinet we're engaging, and there's a timeline that we need to comply with, and we are going to comply with to conclude the budget process within the mandate of Cabinet and allow the Minister of Finance to be responsible for the matters that relate to his responsibility as Minister of Finance.
The Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs Minister, Vellenkosina Hlabisa, says there will be no further extensions with regards to the registration of spaza shops and food handling outlets. Tomorrow marks the final deadline for business owners to register with the municipalities in which they operate. This follows the deaths of more than 20 children last year from foodborne illnesses. The Minister elaborates.
There will be no extension. We are not going to make any recommendation to the President. There was enough time for people to register from the extension made in December up to tomorrow. But any person who wants to get into this business, if he or she is unable to meet the deadline tomorrow, the registration application process will be going on from the first, which is a weekend, of course, from Monday.
The Red Cross is on the ground at the community hall in Chatsworth, south of Durban, where flood survivors have been relocated from Lamontville. The area was among the hardest hit by Tuesday's storms. 6 people died, while some still remain missing. Siyabonga Kheleswayo from the Red Cross in KwaZulu-Natal says they're providing hot meals, blankets, mattresses and psychosocial support to the affected families. Johannesburg's Emergency Services says its teams are ready to respond to all water-related emergencies that might occur. This after the Weather Service issued a warning for severe thunderstorms expected in parts of Gauteng. Emergency Services spokesperson Robert Malautsi.
Our motorists are urged to exercise caution while driving, extend the safe following distance, avoid crossing flooded roads and flooded bridges. Our residents in our low-lying areas are also to urged to monitor the water levels and move to the higher ground when it's safe to do so. From our side as the City of Johannesburg Emergency Management Services, we remain on high alert overnight, monitoring all 7 regions of the city for any emergencies which might occur.
Romanian prosecutors have confirmed that controversial British online influencer Andrew Tate and his brother have left the country. They're flying to the US on a private plane. They still face charges including rape and sex trafficking, which they deny. The BBC's Nick Thorpe has more.
I understand perhaps one of the conditions of their release was that they would travel to the United States. Obviously, they're wanted. There's a warrant for their arrest in the United Kingdom. So if they had stayed in Europe, those countries would have been required to extradite them, presumably, to Britain. The Romanian prosecutors this morning have issued a statement saying that the Tate brothers still face this investigation. They still face these very serious charges. They will return at a later date to Romania to face court proceedings here.
The top story, government's confident the finance minister will table the budget on the 12th of March and there'll be no change or further extension. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Goos.
In your sports this hour, box to return to Nelson Mandela Bay in 2025 home test. Pakistan-Bangladesh match abandoned without a ball being bowled due to rain, and Bach to resign as member of IOC after the end of term. More details at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N1 southbound in four ways has a stationary vehicle before Winnie Mandela Drive exit. The M1 southbound is slow moving through Crown interchange towards Boysons, and Winnie Mandela Drive has delays between Sterling Avenue and 2nd Road. In KZN, the M13 westbound in Pinetown queuing on Fields Hill. The N2 southbound has a stationary vehicle before Sabai Drive exit. The N2 southbound has a stationary vehicle before Spaghetti Junction, and the N2 northbound a stationary vehicle before the M41 Gateway exit. In Cape Town, the M3 southbound slow moving towards Rhodes Drive. The M5 northbound is slow moving towards the N1 Kuburg interchange. The M3 northbound is queuing at Paradise Road, and the N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound queuing towards Hospital Bend. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
Stay safe on the roads. SAFM is with you. In business, a rand saved is a rand earned, and almost 100,000 businesses trust OUTsurance.
We in the eye care industry, we're saving over 1,200 rand a month. To all the business owners, you've got nothing to lose by giving OUTsurance a chance to quote on your business insurance. It's true to say that you always get something out with OUTsurance.
For your business insurance, contact OUTsurance to see how much your business could save. SMS quote to 43328 for immediate cover, or visit outsurance.co.za today. A licensed insurer in FSP. T's and C's online.
In the Arena is a docu-series that takes an in-depth look at the life and career of the legendary tennis player Serena Williams, offering a behind-the-scenes glimpse into her journey, both on and off the court. It explores her rise to tennis dominance, challenges, and personal experiences. Do not miss out on a great story of incredible impact. Catch In the Arena on Saturdays at 3 p.m. on SABC3. Alternatively, at 9 p.m. on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 on Saturdays and Thursdays. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
These are the weekend shows on SAFM. Music of Africa with Shayla Ndikumana. The Jet Set Breakfast with Michelle Constant. Seasons with Khomotso KG Mweketsi. The soundtrack of your life with Ernest Pillay. Weekend Soundowner Classics with Kutlwano Masote. Spotlight with Zai Khan. The Weekend with John Kherika. Rhythm of Africa with Shayla Ndikumana. This is SAFM. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
From the goings on regarding AfriForum and solidarity in the USA to cricket washouts at the Champions Trophy to no water in Teguini, following on from the no water in Johannesburg last week. What more do you want to talk about? I'm just thinking, if you were in a situation where you woke up this morning and you got a result of your favorite sporting team who have lost, and you'll be rather devastated, wouldn't you? But then you find out, for example, that you get a notice that not so much your favorite sporting team, but organizations in South Africa that are funded around HIV who receive their funds through the United States agency USAID, when you find out that their funds now have been effectively cancelled immediately, then suddenly issues like sporting results just don't even take second stage, they just get thrown away because the implications could be far worse than you may think, isn't it? Let's get the thoughts then of Mia Malan, because this is exactly what has happened. Mia Malan is the founder and editor-in-chief of Becky Cisa. Appreciate your time, Mia. Thanks for connecting to us on the National Pulse.
Thanks for having me, Ashraf.
Thank you. And as someone who plays very much in that health space, goodness, it's almost like an anomaly. Your pulses must be racing on this latest news.
You know, Ashraf, many of these people who have been closed down, say for instance the Innova Health Institute, which does fantastic work with, handing out ARVs in state clinics and also with prevention. The guy who started it, James McIntyre, I was a very young journalist when he was one of the people teaching me what I know about HIV. He was a remarkable researcher who researched prevention for mothers, that so that they don't transmit, to get drugs, to not transmit it to their babies. He was the founder of Innova Health Institute. This is decades of work. It's closed down. Innova is the institute that gets the most PEPFAR funding in South Africa. They can't continue. It's over. Overnight.
So when there were threats a few weeks ago, if I understand, then there was like almost something, this will continue for a 3-month period at least, and now you're saying, and I saw your tweet, by the way, like overnight, that's it, effective immediately. So, I mean, the implications are what? That these organizations are effectively close to being shut down.
They're going to close down. Yeah. They're non-profits. And what essentially happened was, in late January, President Trump said he was going to freeze all U.S. Foreign aid funding. Then in early February, he said, okay, he will, as a result of pressure from civil society, he will allow waivers. So many South African organizations could apply for waivers, and essentially those waivers had rules. It said you could continue with your programs for treatment, but you couldn't do prevention programs. So about 2 weeks ago, all these organizations submitted new budgets, and they went through their activities to justify what can they continue with, what not. Didn't hear back a thing. Yesterday night, midnight, they were sending out these letters, and it's as a result of a court case in the United States where two organizations, the Global Health Council and the organization known as AVAC, it's an advocacy organization, they took the Trump administration to court and said they can't freeze this, they have to pay all the USAID organizations their money. And the Trump administration ignored it, and then there was another court order that forced them, that said, are we enforcing for you to do this by midnight? You have to, that's now yesterday midnight US time. You have to tell us how you're going to do this. And instead of telling that, they said we're going to close down organizations. In the court documents, they say there are 5,800 organizations they sent letters to terminate them. Apparently there are 500 that won't be terminated. I'm not aware of any, that's not around the world, obviously, not just in South Africa. I'm not aware of any organization in South Africa that received a notice saying you can continue. But just for clarity, when you get PEPFAR money, you can't just give it directly to the organization. It goes through federal agencies. And in South Africa, that happens through the Centers of Disease Control and USAID. So the organizations who have received these letters to close down are the ones that get their money through USAID. The ones that get their money through the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, that in short people call the CDC, they still continue because there was a different court order for them. But there's anxiety. Many people think it's just a matter of time before it happens in that department as well.
And just to confirm, if they've already got money in their accounts, they were transferred whenever, can they still use that money until it runs out or not?
Well, they've been told to terminate immediately. And remember, these organizations, the USAID organizations, already didn't get any more money in January when President Trump announced that order. So they're actually already in a position, normally they get their money each quarter. So it's not like you get, 2 years of money ahead of time. So they've probably already run out of money, many of them.
Okay. So, we can debate the merits of Trump and his party, and we can talk about it for days on end. It matters less. What matters now is what are the implications for South Africa? So first of all, how many organizations are affected by this?
I haven't gone and counted them. I have a list. If I have to estimate, I think it's about 30, 40 organizations. And the health department also gets some money. So, those were the organizations that either helped in government clinics, or they were very often the organizations who went into communities to find people with HIV, to make sure people take their treatment correctly, or who manage projects where you could get your treatment within a community so you don't have to go to a clinic. So they're going to, unless they've got other funding, they're going to close down. And remember, when you donor fund it, the organization, because HISA's donor funded, how it works with donors is it's not that you can double bill for something. So if they lose their PEPFAR funding, the rest of the funding will be for something else that's likely dependent on part of a PEPFAR person's salary. So if your largest donor goes, it's pretty much the end for you. And I think the important thing now is that the health department comes up with a proper plan. So it was interesting when I asked organization, because I broke the story this morning, and when we asked for reaction, from activists, what do you think? Of course, they're very upset with the Trump administration, but it was very interesting that the level of how upset they are is almost equal with the health department, because they feel since this crisis broke, the health department hasn't come up with a clear plan. They've only issued a circular, and there's so much confusion in what to do, and they feel there hasn't been proper
And what are they saying in that circular? I mean, that would be from the Minister of Health, yeah?
Yes. So in the circular, they say, let's redeploy staff, but it's not very clear who's going to be redeployed, right? There's no instructions as to these people will go there or there. It's sort of like, let's see how things go. I think the most concrete thing is, which is a good thing that came out of this crisis, is that they'll give people treatment for longer periods of time. So instead of giving your treatment, if you're stable and they know that you're taking your treatment, instead of giving it to you for 3 months, they'll give it to you for 6 months, because then it means there's less of a burden on the clinics. You don't have to go there this often. But to do that is a very complex thing. You can't just dish it out for 6 months. You need to make sure that the pharmacies now know how to order and how to package treatment for 6 months. There are implications with the contracts you have with pharmaceutical companies. Now they need to deliver drugs in a different way or in different quantities. So there's a lot of challenges around that. But the good thing about it is we've been wanting to move to 6-month treatment forever.
Anyway,
and everyone was complaining it's going too slowly.
Okay. Yeah. I take it, we need to have a longer discussion about it some other time, but maybe just the last thing for now, right? In all of this, and of course, the health department talks about its own financial constraints, and of course, the budget speech talks about other constraints as well, right? What impact when I say short term, in the next 6 months or to a year maximum, right? Would this have on, again, people who need HIV treatment and the preventatives? I mean, we're talking about the human beings at the very center of this conversation.
Well, if you look at our health department's budget, we buy the HIV pills ourselves, but we do rely on these NGOs to help distribute them. So we're going to see a challenge there, but we could probably still try and get around that. I think where we very heavily rely on PEPFAR support is with prevention. So if you look at our health department's prevention, who supports, how many people will go into HIV negative people will go into prevention pools, it's 75% of it. So we're going to have to find specifically other ways for that. And of course, these nurses it may say it's 17% of our HIV response, but the actual work they do, it's just the budget, 17% of it is far more than 17%.
Yeah,
it's probably half.
And clearly time, I would think, would be running out. And time for us has run out as well. We'll have another chat, I'm sure, about it sometime soon. Mia Malan, thank you for your time. Founder and editor-in-chief of Becky CISA. And as we've said, so many organizations affected by what's happened. And it's not just South Africa, but the reality is today there's a problem. Much appreciate your time. Right. We'll pick up other issues here on the National Pulse right after this.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
The whispers in the morning as I look in your
This February, the month of love and self-care, at SAFM we're celebrating with you, spreading love to all. Let's embrace kindness, connection and self-care. And as always, SAFM will continue leading the conversations that move us through love, wellness and everything in between. This month, let's love ourselves, love each other and keep the conversation going. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
'Cause I'm your lady and you are my man.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Right, we can't take calls today, but we certainly can get WhatsApp voice notes. I have no doubt that from around 5:45 onwards to the end of the show, many people, I expect you to want to talk about the issue about healthcare regarding what has just happened about the funding cuts. And that it's a huge issue, because also if preventatives are reduced, then you know what may happen next, isn't it? Now, so that podcast of the conversation with Mia Malan is available. You can check it out just now, safm.co.za. Just look for the National Pulse on the podcast and you will certainly find it. Now, by the way, there's been a response from Clayson Moniella, who's the head of public diplomacy at International Relations, right? And he tweeted saying, what our friends in the USA are telling us, USAID is being defunded, including the local South African staff. The cutting of funds through USAID is impacting on all countries that receive funding for HIV. Now, despite the US court's intervention, the Center for Disease Control, the CDC, is also being defunded. So the CDC only has funding until the end of March 2025. This will result in the CDC not being able to meet their commitments to projects globally, including some in South Africa. There are fears in the US about cuts to campaigns to distribute flu and other vaccines, which can have adverse effects to older and other vulnerable people there too. Right. Okay. Response from you. Let's hear it. In the meantime, let's talk about education in South Africa. There's been the basic education sector Lekgotla that's taken place today, and the President of South Africa, President Ramaphosa, delivered a keynote address at this Lekgotla at Birchwood in Boksburg. The theme for the Lekgotla is strengthening foundations for learning for a resilient, future-fit education system. So let's pick out some of the key highlights from the President's address. First of all, he related to the World Bank report, effectively emphasizing the importance of, well, we all know it, don't we? Basic education.
Education in particular is the most crucial determinant of whether an education system succeeds, falls short, or fails. We therefore regard the annual basic education Lekgotla as one of the most important events on the national agenda, and that is why whenever the invitation comes, I, Deputy Minister, don't only honor, I do what you said, I respect, and that's what brings me here. So to put this into perspective, in its recent South Africa economic update, the World Bank singled out basic education as one of the three sectors with the greatest potential to drive inclusive growth and to transform South Africa into a high-income country. Now, what is greatly encouraging is that the reforms proposed by the World Bank in areas such as prioritizing foundational years are very much aligned with the department's vision. Early childhood development, numeracy, and early grade reading are just some of the focus areas highlighted in the World Bank report.
So the Lekgotla takes place every year, right? So why is it important?
Of the 2021 Progress in International Reading Literacy Study, that showed that more than 80% of grade 4 learners in our country cannot read for meaning in any language, including in their own home language. Now, that is a real bad situation. South Africa also ranked low in a recently published study on trends in international mathematics and science, which surveys capabilities in grades 4 and 8. Not having mastered basic skills in reading and maths at foundation level sets the tone for how a learner will perform in high school and beyond. And that is why early childhood development education becomes the key foundation and bedrock. So correcting these shortcomings is for us the most urgent of tasks. It must be front and center of all our efforts in basic education. This is the first basic education sector Lekgotla convened under a government of national unity, and your minister and deputy minister, as you can see all over their faces, everything about them, what they wear, the way they walk, the way they speak, is GNU, and that's what it is.
Naturally, you have the Lekgotla, then you have the outcomes, and the president is looking forward to it.
Now, I look forward to the outcomes of this year's Lekgotla, which is happening at such a critical time in the life of our nation. The basic education sector Lekgotla brings together political and administrative heads in education, as well as the representatives of teachers, parents, and learner organizations. It also brings together local and international academics, as I said, and welcome them, as well as experts from the post-school education sectors and industry leaders specializing in human resources. Minister, I would, as we move on, would like to see more industry players who would be here in larger numbers, so that what we plan in our Lekgotla should also be informed by what they have to say. Because in the end, we want the young people that we are preparing for the future to know precisely what the economy needs, because they are going to be key actors in that economy, and what firms need in the form of human resource. In other words, we have in this room the full complement of those who have it within their means and capability to transform the basic education landscape for the better, and most importantly, to also transform it for the future. And if we can embrace these types of approaches and be more practically oriented in doing what needs to be done, and come up with more innovative ways of dealing better with our past. I often say that we are dealing with what happened in the past. That shadow of, in your sector, of apartheid education continues to cast its shade on the future as we move on. We therefore need to do a lot of things to take our children out of that shadow so that they can come into the light. And we do so by fully embarking on innovative methods, innovative ways of being able to come up with innovative solutions. Now, I'm glad that all of you who are here, you're committed to doing precisely that.
Okay, that's it. President Ramaphosa at the basic education sector, Lekgotla. Comment on what he said. Let's hear it. You can't call in, but you can certainly WhatsApp, text messages, or voice note 0614 104 107, or you can send out a tweet tag SFM Radio and myself, Ashraf Garda, when you are tweeting. Here's a comment from Frank, which should certainly get all of us thinking. Hi, Ashraf. Look, notwithstanding AfriForum and others, we are 30 long years into the Rainbow Nation. We cannot, on the one hand, say that we are a democracy when, for example, a newborn whose father was a thriving business guy before 94 and still is, but now his son, the newborn, is entitled to preference under AA and BEE. This is not equality. I think, Frank, if I can understand what you're saying, is that if you were disadvantaged or previously disadvantaged, never mind, we know primarily in South Africa it's been based on the basis of color, but if you were previously disadvantaged and now you are advantaged because you are very successful, do you still remain disadvantaged legally? And what about your children? If you, for example, have got this multi-million-dollar business venture, when do you move from advantaged to disadvantaged, or disadvantaged in this case to advantage? It's an interesting point. 5:30. Let's get the news headlines. Here's Greg House.
Quick look at the headlines. The post office will stay open for another month thanks to 150 million rand from National Treasury. Government's confident the finance minister will table his budget on the 12th of March, and the M23 rebel leader has accused the Congolese president of ordering attacks during his mass rally in the eastern DRC. There's a full update at 6 o'clock.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the R21 northbound in Kempton Park has a crash reported near Voortrekker Road. Rivonia Road and Sunning Hill is slow moving at Witkoppen Road, and the N1 northbound in Midrand has a stationary vehicle reported near New Road. In KZN, the N2 southbound has a stationary vehicle before Spaghetti Junction. The N2 northbound has a stationary vehicle before the M41 Gateway exit, and the N2 southbound in Prospection has a crash near Prospection Road exit. In Cape Town, the M7 Jakes Hatfield Drive southbound is queuing towards the R300 interchange. The R300 northbound is queuing on the ramp to the N1 outbound carriageway, and the N1 inbound has a stationary vehicle reported before Brighton Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tumi Nkapele.
Right, Jimmy, let's talk rugby. There's this all-important Springbok itinerary, right?
Yes, definitely. Well, the Springboks will tour the country yet again as the local tests have been spread around the country, with Nelson Mandela Bay Stadium joining Bombela as two of the outer venues for the games in a quieter domestic season. For now, there's no word on a possible extra test match as requested by Springbok coach Rassie Erasmus. The clash will be the first between the two sides in Gauteng, followed by a second test in Nelson Mandela Bay in Gqeberha a week later, before the final incoming series game, which will be against Georgia in Nelspruit a week later. The Boks will play Australia in back-to-back Castle Lager Rugby Championship tests in Joburg and Cape Town, while Argentina test is set for Durban this year. Meanwhile, Springboks have been boosted by the return of Felix Jones to join their coaching team as an assistant coach from the 1st of March. The 37-year-old, who was key part of the Boks setup when they won the 2019 and 2023 Rugby World Cups, was recently with England, and Bok coach Rassie Erasmus unveiled his management team for the season, with Lance Lemekis to join the medical team as one of the two physiotherapists from June, while Robin Moore will join as team dietitian from the 1st of April. In football, Bafana football legend Benny McCarthy will officially be unveiled as Kenya national team coach on Monday. The 47-year-old touched down in Nairobi alongside his former Orlando Pirates teammate Monique Joseph, who is set to be appointed as his goalkeeper trainer during his stint in Kenya. McCarthy is expected to outline his vision for the national team on Monday. Meanwhile, Thulani Serrero is officially a Cape Town City player. The Cape side unveiled the 34-year-old this morning, seeing him return to the PSL after 14 years. The club's next league assignment will be against AmaZulu away from home on Sunday, and we await to see if if he will play in that match. Still staying with football, Stellenbosch FC will be eyeing the Betway Premiership top 4 spot with a win over Polokwane City when the two teams meet at the Danny Craven Stadium tomorrow night at 7:30. Stellies are enjoying a 4-match unbeaten run across all competitions and are 5th on the log. A win for Polokwane City would see the Winelands side climb to the 4th spot due to their superior goal difference over the Limpopo side. Rise and Shine, on the other hand, are 4th, a point behind 3rd place Kukuna United, and a win over Stellenbosch would elevate Polokwane into the top 3. In athletics, South African athletics coach Michael Mbambani says that he's looking forward to seeing the long-standing men's 2 Oceans Marathon record fall this year. The 54th edition of the 56-kilometer ultra marathon is set for the 5th of April in Cape Town. The late Thompson Magwana set the record of 3 hours and 3 minutes 44 seconds in 1988, and it has remained untouched over the 3 decades.
But from our side, it's time for us to talk about the record. We just need to talk about it. That record can now not be dead because the late Thompson passed away. Now no one wants to talk about it. That happens even in a half marathon sometimes in South Africa, where you pick up that the runners, they change the look of the race. As soon as they start bunching up, then you must know that the race will be won by a wrong person. We can't have that. We don't want lucky charmers. We want athletes that will work and win.
In Olympic news, the International Olympic Committee President Thomas Bach will resign as member of the Olympic body after handing over his presidential successor in June. Bach steps down from his post this year after 12 years in charge, and he will hand over 23rd of June to the new president, who will be elected on the 20th of March. Bach could have stayed on as a member until the age of 80, having joined the IOC back in 1991. In tennis, Alexander Zverev was stunned by American qualifier Leonard Tien, losing 6-3, 6-4 at the Mexican Open. The loss is a further hit for Zverev's chances of claiming the number 1 spot in the ATP rankings, while Jannik Sinner serves his 3-month doping ban. For Tien, he becomes the youngest American to beat a top 3 player since Andy Roddick took out Gustavo Kuerten back in 2001, and the youngest ever men's player to win his first 2 matches against top 5. And finally, in motorsport, Lewis Hamilton was the fastest for Ferrari in the second morning of the pre-season Formula 1 testing in Bahrain. Hamilton put in a best lap of 1 minute 29.379 seconds and did 45 laps. On that note, it is a wrap from my side. I'll be back again tomorrow.
Okay, just a quick one. Benny McCarthy, you think good move for him?
I think it's a great move for him. If anything, I think it's a good move for Kenya, because obviously they want to be back on the map, and I'm sure he does have hopes of being a great coach one day. So this is a coaching opportunity for him. This is a chance for him to make a name for himself.
And I said the other day, imagine that, Kenya versus Bafana, Benny McCarthy, our top goal scorer, if I'm not mistaken, on the other side.
How do you see that one going?
I'll ask him that. I'd like to ask him that, okay? All right. You better say your goodbyes.
Right, then. Tulasizwe
Simelane.
Do members of the SANDF, or some of them, have to buy their own uniforms?
We are aware of those rumors doing the rounds. We don't have any specific cases that we know of where members had to buy uniform. What I can confirm is that very, very many soldiers have complained to us over the past year that they have to buy their own boots because there are no boots in stock.
So those are actually the ones you can verify that your members talk about having to buy their own boots?
Absolutely. There's a very big shortage of boots in the Defence Force, and people fork out 1,500, 2,000 rand for a pair of boots because they are simply told there are no boots.
Advocate Biki Grief is the National Secretary of the South African National Defence Union.
This is Tulasizwe Simelane on The Morning Brief. Missed it? Find the podcast at safm.co.za.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, the SFM market update comes up 6 to 7 to set the scene today again. Dudu Ramela in for Jimmy. Hi, Dudu.
Hello, Ashraf. Thank you very much, and a very good evening to your listeners. Here's what you can look forward to come 6 p.m. Implats has announced its interim statement, that it was a mixed bag in terms of results. So the South African producer of platinum group metals, Impala Platinum, posted a profit of 1.19 billion rand. We're going to be speaking to Merunisha Kerber, who is the Chief Financial Officer of Impala Platinum. We also stick to results news as we speak to Motus Holdings. They've delivered a stable performance for the 6 months ended at December 31. We also have conversations around the G20 presidency, which is something that you have done extensively throughout your show, Ashraf. The conversation will be twofold. So firstly, we have an economist who argues that, well, we need to make sure that we put the issues of young people on the table because the median age on the continent is 19 years old. And so are the voices of young people actually coming through, and not just coming through, but is there action? Unemployment being a big issue. So you're either going to make sure that this youth dividend bears fruit by investing in it, or you're going to see young people burning the continent. Which will we have? And then we're also going to be speaking to Professor Patrick Bond. He's a political economist and professor of sociology at the University of Johannesburg, about some of the possibilities, priorities, and problems that we have seen so far. We know the United States has not been in attendance while the relevant ministers in terms of the different meetings that we have seen in February. We look at liquid gold, renewable energy, but this is something that is very fascinating for me, at least, Ashraf, because I didn't know that you could reuse oil that you find spilt, for instance, in rivers, and you can reuse that, refine it, and it is oil that can be used once again for whatever it is that you need, right? From airplanes right down to your car. So we're going to be speaking to the founder of INO Biodiesel, and that's Mahlatsi Mamayila. All that and more coming up. We're also going to be getting an in-depth look at the markets with Skalk Low. He's a wealth manager at PSG Old Oak. It's back to you, Ashraf.
Okay, perfect. Lots to look forward to on your show. And then that's after that. 7 o'clock, you got sport for 1 hour with Michael Abramson. Right. Okay, let's time for me to get a feel of your pulse after this.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Okay, just for today, you can't call in, but it doesn't mean we can't engage. You can send us a WhatsApp voice note, 0614104107. You can also send us text messages, which many people are doing. Let's get the thoughts of any of the things that you feel you want to raise. There's so many comments about the issue of the HIV organizations in South Africa, the impact that it will have in terms of the funding being cut completely. Basic Education Lekgotla, any thoughts you want to pick up on that? AfriForum, any thoughts on that one there? And there are so many other issues too, right, that we can talk about. The issues of the state of the provinces, Limpopo, Northwest, water. Where is the water? It's like a common theme no matter where you go. Yeah, Omar in Mpumalanga commenting, saying, Ashraf, well, good day, Mr. Garda. Don't just call me Ashraf, man. Love the show. Why does government not take pay cuts to ease the pressure on the South African economy as they get so much allowances? When you say government, you mean government employers like MPs. Is that what you're referring to? Just be clear about that, right? Ashraf Peter Groenewald is the man. No more chicken and beef in jail. That's one of the needed steps to make prisons heaven. Soya and beans is the menu. These days, they are planning to revolt with the help of human rights groups. I think this human rights group should buy them meat, Tolly from Zola. We spoke about it a while back, remember. I think we need to revisit the story of the cost it takes to have a prisoner, in jail, in terms of correctional service, and whether we can actually afford that, right? Now, here's another comment that I want to it's so important. So this is what it says. So those who don't like what is happening in South Africa, there's an offer, and we must emphasize this. It is not all the Afrikaners. It is not all white people. She then says, there's an offer. They must take it and stop peddling lies. And that comes from the minister in the presidency, Khumbudzo Ntshabeni. I wonder whether you ever thought on that. Right, let's get to your comments, right? And again, there's a lot of issues about money wasted, right?
It's Tammy in East London. You know, these ANC people, they have a skill of misusing money. They are so obsessed in using money and appropriate. Because this Lekotlas is another way of just using money, spending money. No results is going to come out, no implementation is going to come out. It's just a talk show. That's what they are good at. Nothing is going to come out of there that will be implemented.
Well, I mean, do they not meet at all? What do you think? Should they not meet?
Ashraf, this is Langa from Maritzburg. I want to concur with a previous scholar who said that in KZN they're not doing anything to fix anything except when it's a case of emergency. I fully concur with that sentiment. You know, part of what we are facing in water, electricity, drainages, roads, and you name it all has to do with them not doing anything, you know. And then on the 11th hour, then that's where you'll see them, you know, trying to do 1 and 2. You know, I think since 2021, we've been experiencing quite devastating weather conditions. But up to this far, nothing has been done in terms of like remedying or preparing the province. Thanks, Langa from Maritzburg.
Well, thank you. I mean, and I hear that so often at so many levels of service delivery, isn't it?
Hi, Ashraf. We would be absolute fools to take the threats from United States and Donald Trump lightly. And I think AfriForum and the ANC must sit down and iron out their differences for the sake of this country. Otherwise, you know, the most vulnerable amongst us will suffer the most, and that's the reality. Only a fool would ignore America. You ignore America at your own peril. Thanks, Farai.
Well, Farai, I'm in agreement with you. I don't like the Americans. I don't like what they're doing. I don't like Trump. But I'm also not naive. If you're a leader, then you have to act very differently from someone just calling like a football fan. You know, you can't do that. You have to do things very differently. In the long term, we need to remove our reliance on countries like the Americans or the Russians or the Chinese or India, whoever it is. But in the short term, we have to find a way that we can effectively mitigate against the negative impact it will have on our country. Your point about the AfriForum is correct. You know, why are they not talking to each other? You can spew the dirt all day about who's right and who's wrong, but at some stage you think that real politics must kick in, and they have to be talking to each other.
Hello, Ashraf, your listeners and your team. Just want to understand if the U.S. want to impose some kind of sanctions to us as South Africa, does it mean their brands like Coca-Cola, Kentucky Fried Chicken, McDonald's, and many others will cease operating in South Africa? Am I too simplistic, or is that what it means?
Well,
Thank you very much.
Thanks for that. I stand to be corrected. My understanding, I mean, that would apply if there's a wholesale sanctions of a country, which is what happened with apartheid South Africa. That's not the case here. What they're doing now is in terms of preferential treatment, in terms of AGOA, and in terms of the US aid, which is in many other countries as well. That's the two. I think there's nothing stopping trade sanctions, not at all. I don't even think it's on the agenda, in fact. But if that happened, then that would apply. But it's not being discussed right now.
Good afternoon, Ashraf and the team. Trust you guys are well and blessed. With regards to AfriForum and solidarity, there's only one question that I want to ask yourself, the team in South Africa. How many people of color, being African, colored, and Indian, is part of the AfriForum structures that builds an inclusive society? If we can check that, I'll really appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Okay, you know what the answer is going to be, isn't it?
Good afternoon, Ashraf. To hear AfriForum equating democratic South Africa for what happened under apartheid is shocking. It's a completely different thing. They are not special. White people can participate in government, they can vote. Nobody has to sit on separate chairs. And ultimately, the land that AfriForum sits on was taken away from black South Africans many years ago. The fact that they still believe they're entitled to it is mind-blowing. Thank you.
Okay, there we are. An important thought there. You want to agree with that? You want to challenge that? Feel free to do so. To WhatsApp, no calls today, 0614 104 107. Voice notes are most welcome. Raise some of the biggest issues we've been talking about all day in terms of what moves the national pulse.
Afternoon, Ashraf. To those who support AfriForum, how do they explain that the minority of this country are still holding the majority of the land, and the majority of this country are owning or holding the minority of the land? How do they justify that? How do they justify that? How do they justify that the minority is having the wealth of this country, whereas the majority doesn't? Doesn't make sense. Mfundo here from Cape Town. Thanks, bye.
And there's a comment from Tim, which is an interesting one, Tim from KZN. Ashraf, you impose your views on Trump. Why don't you like Trump? You are supposed to be impartial. I'm not interested in your views. Well, I'll tell you what. Listen, the nature of talk shows nowadays is people are fine with a talk show host sharing an opinion. And I'll tell you what, simple thing. Why would I like Donald Trump when he's spoken about my country, not just now, in the past, saying we're what did he call us? What did he say a few years ago? Like a dirty word. Why would I like him for that? Why would I like him when many Americans feel he shouldn't even be the president? Why would I like him about what he said about my country now? Unsubstantiated. Why would I even like him? Why would I like Donald Trump now about the comments he's made about Mexicans, about Panama Canal, about the Canadians, talking about Canada is like, just another territory that they own, and referring to their leader as the governor? Why would I like him about the comments he's made about the Middle East, about turning Gaza into his, they can just leave. Why would I like him? I mean, seriously, maybe you should give me a reason why I should like him, right? And here's another. To everyone who wants to continue sucking up to Trump, please remember that Trump just posted on the AI video of people belly dancing on the graves of the Gazans. This is not hyperbole. Well, there you are, Connor from KZN. Well, another good reason. Why would I like Donald Trump? I mean, seriously speaking. Here's another on AfriForum.
Coca-Cola.
Hi, Ashraf. Mziwenkosi here from Springfontein. I just want to ask, if a group of black men from America went to Russia and China and asked those countries to punish United States of America, would they be welcome in America, or would they not be arrested on arrival from Russia and China? What AfriForum is doing, really, they need to be looked at with a serious eye from the government. And something needs to be done about these people.
All right, I welcome further comments on that in terms of how should South Africa deal with AfriForum. It's a democracy. You have to prove, when people talk about treason, you have to prove that to nail them. It just can't be on a woman offensive, I would think. But I certainly welcome your comments on that. Right, here's another.
Hi, Ashraf. I don't understand why the human rights, they are worried about the government cutting meat for prisoners. Remember, the school kids, and they are not even getting meat in our schools. They are not being fed meat in that program. And why should we worry about a rapist and a murderer who's in prison, who raped the very same kids that are not even getting meat in schools? This is someone in Polokwane.
Interesting. I mean, many people, even the mayor of Joburg, when I spoke to him a few days ago, and please listen to that podcast, spoke about, some of these human rights organizations effectively lobbying to an extent where what they felt was being just was turned around completely. Here's another.
Good day. Did you hear the pause of our president when he spoke about grade 4s not being able to read in their own indigenous languages, and yet they want our kids to learn Chinese, Mandarin, and Swahili? Wow.
Okay, and there's some more. So, you know that comment earlier we had where the guy said, laat ons hier bly. And here's a caller saying, laat ons hier bly. You have to keep playing that clip over and over again. Love it. That is why I love South Africa. Okay, here's another.
Hi, Ashraf Lukman, Captain. What AfriForum did, how they did it, is none of my concern. But is what they're saying about the ANC false? ANC has been destructive for 30 years. What do they have to show for us? They have nothing to show. Municipalities, it's Morning and Cathy show. Municipalities is down the drain. They have nothing to show for us. So that is true. I agree with them on that. But the one caller saying the land is returning dignity. What dignity? The land bank is going bankrupt. The land distribution, the line, the delay is so long. People were still waiting to be allocated land. What dignity are you talking about? The ANC had 30 years to give land to our people, like they say. They failed that also. Now they want to use AfriForum as a scapegoat. AfriForum is 3% of the population. 3%. Bye.
Well, I'll tell you what, I mean, you could be right on many things. First of all, I would disagree to say, what have the ANC done? I think government has done a lot in 30 years, but there's also been massive shortcomings, and we must concede that. That is why we have the problems we have right now. But the shortcomings of the ANC doesn't equate to the AfriForum being right on the accounts that the claims they've made. It really can't be, can it?
Ashraf, good afternoon, man. Flores here from the Western Cape. You're talking to your guest there about water restrictions and maintenance. Of course, it's maintenance, man. The ANC has neglected over 30 years. I don't think that they even had that expertise how to maintain these water stations and the pipes and the lines. Now he's talking about 130 billion rand that they're going to need. No, man, these guys did not do their due diligence, man. So yeah, now they're struggling and they want to blame the poor citizens. Have a good show. Bye-bye.
Thank you. And I agree. Everything is like we consuming too much water. I don't think that's the case. I think there's far too much leakage. Poor maintenance is across the board, across the country. Another one on the AfriForum thing. Many black South Africans have been given land, but what have they done with it? Just collecting handouts and tenders. You need to be clear when you say given land, which land are you actually referring to, right? Another one, I'm highly disturbed about the happenings in our country where foreigners destroy state property in broad daylight. This amounts to treason as far as I know. What is strange is that from the presidency down to law enforcement, nothing is said or done. Do we still have a country, or are we a banana republic? And there's another, the guy's right, the ANC's rubbish. They're the same, if not worse, than the apartheid government. The country looks like a toilet now. All right, there's a few more that I want to pick up before we wrap up the show. And thank you for the many, many levels of engagement. By the way, you can also tweet if you're up to it. The National Pulse, the hashtag, tag SFM Radio, and myself, Ashraf Garda.
Hey, Ashraf, it's time in East London. Ashraf, I support what Trump did to South Africa. It should serve as a warning shot, as a wake-up call for the rest of the continent, to stop depending on the universe and begging handouts. It's a good call. That useless African Union organization should wake up. They should wake up and take their place.
Well, look, the unintended benefit is we need to be more independent. But explain to me how it can be a good call, especially the issues of the AGOA threats because of South Africa's position regarding Afrikaners and including the stance on the Israel and the ICJ. Explain that to me.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Mqede here in Kala. I have noticed and discovered the South African president are good in diverting and change the focus of the minds of South Africans and show them the opposite direction when fire is burning on their hands, like this expropriation of land. Look now, the president is going to send now the envoy to go and explain this in the world. This is going to be unnecessary expenditure of budget. I don't know what this president is thinking. Thanks, Ashraf Mqete here.
Okay, thanks, Mqete. Well, I mean, look, if it's going to cost them money to travel, you can't now say why they're spending that money, can they?
Hey, Ashraf, the DA should be the political party that understands what it means to appoint a candidate that you want. Because they did that several times when they were running the seat of Joburg, appointing candidate that scored less, but appointed those people because those were the people that they preferred. Come on, man, DA.
Well, I mean, listen, to respond to you, I think one of the things I'm not clear, I yet to see political parties who absolutely do everything that is putting the interests of South Africa first. And I mean, all those parties have had positions to govern, okay, at certain national level as well as local level.
Hi, Ashraf. It's Joseph here from Randbeck. You know, sometimes when the Freedom Front raised this issue that the African National Congress has got discriminatory laws, I partly agree with them because of this thing of deployment. It discriminates against us as black people because you can apply for a job, but if you are not one of their cronies, they will never appoint you. That is discrimination at its best, and it's even meted against black people.
But that would not be discrimination as you would see. That would be cronyism. Here's the last comment.
Hello, Ashraf. I think these Africans, some of them, they think the world revolves around them. Really. You come to Free State, there by Kofifontein, Jacobstown. They decided to close the road, hire security guards with guns, just to make sure that no trucks are passing there because they feel powerful. They can close the road. And our government, our officials are not doing anything and they can see what's happening there.
Okay, that's the show. We'll do it again tomorrow, but the pulse of the nation reflected on the national pulse is a 24/7 feeling, isn't it? So feel free to comment on our social media posts anytime. But thanks to the team and to you for listening in and for engaging all throughout the show. Let's see what moves the national pulse tomorrow. Here's Greg Host with the news.
Thank you again, Ashraf. Most bank governors attend G20 finance meeting and the budget speech will go ahead. Good evening.